this meeting to order. Due to time constraints, we've changed the agenda of our work session and moved the enrollment report that was on our regular meeting to our work session, so that will no longer be on our regular meeting tonight. I would also like to propose that we move our data metrics plan to November. So I would like to make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda without both the enrollment report and the data metrics plan. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as said?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about the proposed changes to tonight's agenda? We will now vote to approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Tonight's agenda is approved. Dr. Stanley, will you please review tonight's agenda for us?
Absolutely. So we are going to start with our Excellence in Action number 200 celebration. I thought that I saw Troy coming here somewhere. Oh, there he is. All right, that is great. And then we go into a meeting recess because we have our mandatory World's Best Workforce public hearing. We'll come back into recess. We'll hear from members of the public. Edina Education Fund is here to provide a report. We have several consent agenda items that you'll go through. And then we're going to hear about our pre-K-12 comprehensive literacy plan, an update on continuous school improvement plans. We have some policies that you're going to review. We have my goals, the strategic plan changes, my goals, board goals that are going to be approved, and then we actually have quite a few policies for review. Leadership and committee updates and my updates.
Thank you, Dr. Stanley. First on second on our agenda is our Excellence in Action tonight. And tonight we are celebrating Edina's 200 state championships. Woo! And we have Assistant Principal and Activity Directors Troy Stein and the Edina Dance Team Varsity Coach, Kristen, is it B1? B1? Okay. And then also Edina High School Senior Ben Sanderson. So welcome.
Fan favorite. Board Chair Allenberg, Dr. Stanley, and the school board, thank you for taking a couple minutes tonight at a busy evening to celebrate with us and get an update on our 200 state championship, not only the celebration, a few data points around the history of that, and then I have some distinguished guests with me that are going to share a little bit of their perspective of what it meant for them, but also the focus of our programming really is about providing opportunities and life-changing events for our student athletes. As we continue on to the next slide, first off, we had a committee of coaches, teachers, alumni, and some students that really were engaged in celebrating the 200 state championship. We're fortunate to be in this position, but also it creates challenges because like a lot of schools, they will put forth a celebration after winning one specific state title, and we win them a lot, so we have to pick and choose when we can pull these together. I think when you look at an event that can celebrate the rich tradition of a school district, expand on the excellence of a specific program, and then embrace our community, there are a few opportunities for this to happen, and we're certainly fortunate to be able to do that. If we continue to the next slide, you see a group picture. Certainly, the event was the first home football game against Minnetonka. We had some food trucks, and we had some opportunities for alumni and former state champions to gather. And then before the kickoff, we had a group picture with the 200 banner unveiled. Next slide, please. And this is small, but I wanted to just share a little bit around the analytics of the history of the 200 state titles. When you look at the 50s and 60s and the start of Edina Public Schools, we had a number of, when you look back at historical achievements with our boys basketball team winning 3 in a row and a tremendous winning streak of 69 straight wins, Everybody's heard of our Hall of Fame coach, Willard Eichela, and his first state championship. And then when you jump to the 70s and 80s, and you have the onset of Title IX and our tremendous involvement of starting girls programming and a significant boost in opportunities for females here at Edina. But we've embraced that and really provided opportunities and look for them to excel. And you see that historically with the number of state championships in girls tennis, girls swim and dive is just remarkable. As we jump into the 90s and 2000s, you see the inclusiveness of adaptive athletics winning some of our first championships. And you have the remarkable achievement from Coach Paulson winning 10 of 10 in that decade. And then you look at the last 13 years from 2010 to the present, arguably the most successful stretch of significant championships. Remarkable achievements, and I think the highlight is earning 8 state titles in one school year, 18-19. And then over that 3-year span after that, we had 20, which is the most in a 3-year span. If you continue on to the next slide for me. A couple did you knows. Certainly the first 100 state titles were won in a 44-year span, and then the next 100 were in a 24-year span. And certainly, the addition of female sports and I think the growth in programming, right? We continue to add programming, which leads to opportunities. Another one is the most state championships in any sport is girls tennis with 37. Boys also have 25. Between them, it's 62. And again, the most state championships in one year is 8 in that 3-year span I talked about from 2018 to 20, with 20 of them. And that's including a spring shutdown where we didn't even have any spring sports. Continue on to the next slide, please. But I think the point of coming here tonight is to honor and recognize that achievement, but also to emphasize what our programming is about and what we are focusing our achievements on. And that is really about providing an outstanding opportunity. We want seniors to walk away feeling like they were a part of something special and that they have put forth a lot of hard work for an opportunity to develop bonds and relationships with teammates. And along the way, we have some tremendous coaches that lead our programs. And Kristen's going to touch on that. Kristen's one of them here that's going to talk about our dance program. We have knowledgeable coaches that know the sport they are coaching. They have extreme passion for what they are doing. They love going to practice. They love working with our students. And they care about our kids, and they show it. So with that, I'm going to slide this down to Kristen B1, our head dance coach.
Great, you can go to the next slide. So I'm talking from a coaching perspective, and first off, being a part of Edina schools in general is why I wanted to work in the schools with my daytime job in community ed. It's just a sense of pride, and I really have felt that through now my 13th season coaching dance. So, I just wanted to point out really what made a difference for our program. When I first walked in 2011, it was more of a social club. There was no real goal-oriented practices going on. The team wasn't connected. There wasn't really a true culture there. So having to take that and build it over several years to get to where we are, and right now we're sitting at, we've tripled in size of a program. We have gone to state 9 straight years, and we've medaled twice. We almost added to that 2018-2019 year. We actually tied for a state championship and lost the tiebreaker. So, but we're still really proud of what we did that year and what we accomplished. We're one of the only programs who are double finaling. And what that means is that we go to state finals in both jazz and kick, and that's rare to do as a program, and we've become one of the most elite now in that. And really from a coaching perspective, we've really made mental health, especially the last few years, a big focus and part of our culture. With that, contributing factors to where we were and to where we are now really depend on the leadership change we've had, the buy-in, and that mindset of growth and challenging and persevering, and the attitude and effort, having a culture that makes you want to be a part of it and having fun and enjoying the journey along the way, not just the outcome. If you want to go to the next slide. One thing that dance is unique is, our athletes aren't necessarily going off and competing in an NCAA sport. Different colleges and schools and outside of college, there's different ways to take dance. And in college, there's still collegiate dance, and you're still like, I am a double national championship member from the University of Minnesota dance team, and that was my way of pursuing dance. And it's just so exciting to see that it's a common misconception that we don't have opportunities beyond in our sport, or there's similar sports to us as such as cheer or any other sports that don't have that NCAA behind it. But now I'm proud to say that I have had many alum go off to compete in college. I have one that's now coaching herself in college, which makes me so proud. And at the end of the day, we want to help build athletes that are strong, who are able to take on hard things, who can face challenges and obstacles, but also with that newfound confidence and thrive. So that's our goal with our development of our athletes, and really wanting to send them off on a journey that they're ready for once they leave our program. So thanks for listening. Passing it off to Ben.
Hi, my name's Ben Sanderson. I'm a senior at Edina, and I was on the 200th state title winning golf team. Some activities I'm involved in at Edina are golf, hockey, band, Model UN, peer tutoring, science club, and community service. Being a Hornet has always been a huge part of my identity. Growing up, I always remember going to Edina football and hockey games, and always competing on Hornet hockey teams and other teams as well. Growing up, I think Edina is unique because everyone tries to push each other both athletically and academically. And in my experience, everyone takes a lot of pride in what they're doing. Some of my favorite memories have been competing on a team for Edina, just because Edina is such a respected community, and it's really cool to add on to the accomplishments that Edina already has. Winning the 200 state title was a really cool experience for me. My dad won a tennis state title when he was in high school, so it's really cool to be among the ranks of him and everyone before me who has put in all the effort that they did to win a state tournament. And I think it's a reflection of the hard work and dedication of Edina as a community that we've won 200 state titles. It was super cool to see the support from the community before, during, and after the state tournament, especially at the celebration a couple weeks ago, just to see everyone that has put in so much effort to win a state title and has taken so much pride in Edina. And winning this 200 state title is obviously a memory I'll never forget, just because it was so cool to be the final step of such a huge accomplishment, and my team and I felt extremely lucky to be a part of it.
And in closing, I just want to signify the 200 logo that our 200 Celebration Committee landed on. And we have a couple of those opportunities to get that logo on a T-shirt or a keychain in our activities office or Hornet Hub school store at the high school. But also just want to finish and thank a tremendous partnership with the Edina Athletic Booster Club, who are just not only financially supporters, just a tremendous amount of volunteers that are provided to our programs over the years. Certainly our partnership with Twin Cities Orthopedic, as Kristen talks about the wellness component and mental health, they're a big part of our programming, both physically with having a full-time trainer in our school all day long, and then our wellness initiative that they are supporting as well. Certainly the adults in red behind us, the teachers that support our students and our athletes in the classroom, and I know that they came out here tonight to celebrate with us this evening. Appreciate their support. And lastly, I want to thank all of you, the school board and our district office staff, who put forth the honor and pride of providing these opportunities for our students. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Before you go, board members might have a question or comment. Sorry.
Happy to answer any.
I know, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to, this was a fantastic presentation, but I just wanted to thank you, Director Stein. I know that you just rolled off the Minnesota State High School League Board, and that was extra above and beyond work, and so I appreciate your work there at the state level and being a voice for our students. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and your work in that.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to echo Director Green that this would not happen without you and your leadership. So thank you for your leadership for our school district. And I'm sure it's not always easy being in charge of activities and athletics in Edina. So really appreciate it. You and your family do a lot for our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Real quick, I just wanted to echo, I've worked with you plenty, Troy, and I just wanted to say thank you for all your leadership. It's obvious that the 58 titles that have come under your tenure of, as a direct reflection of the coaches that you've been hiring and the people and the quality programming and everything that you've kind of pushed through with when it came through the bonding and the building out of the activity centers and everything else like that. That was an amazing accomplishment for this community. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I could echo that, but I was also going to say, as you were talking about this, I was thinking about some of the things that we talk about as a board, which is the whole student, and we talk about mental health, and you touched on a lot of those things, and that athletics, whether it's an athletic team, whether it's robotics, whether it's music, whatever it is, that ability for students to be involved makes a big difference in shaping who they are, and the people in this room have a big role in that as well. And so coming from a small town where I don't think we ever celebrated a state championship, I've had this conversation with my own children that 200 is really something when you stop and think about that. I mean, that is really impressive. So hats off to all the people that had a role to play with that, and try for your leadership.
Thank you.
I think before we let you go, I think what everyone really wants to know is, Ben, do you ever sleep? Because that is an impressive list of activities. So you don't have to answer that. But thank you both for coming, for your leadership, for being an outstanding representative of the Hornet athletes and student athletes. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our world's best workforce hearing. We are actually going to recess our meeting because this is a public hearing. I'm going to invite up our Director of Achievement, Equity, and Multilingual Learner Programming, Director Franny Bakar, and our Director of Teaching and Learning, Jody D. St. Hubert. They're going to come up. We are officially going to go into recess right now. The public can answer questions. We're going to come back from recess when you're finished and the public has answered questions they want, and then the board will have an opportunity to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Stanley, Chair Allenberg, board directors, colleagues, and community members.
We are a racially identified district compared to our neighboring district. So racially isolated, the enrollment of a protected class of district-wide is more than 20% compared to the number of a protected class of students in an adjoining district. So the adjoining district that we work with is Hopkins. So for both of us to qualify for achievement and integration, we have to work together. That also means that you won't see in the goals here, but we do work together with Hopkins to provide some programming. We use some of the funds to provide programming in which we bring students from both districts together. And we typically tend to do that at the high school level for students. The other way that we qualify for achievement and integration funds, because we do get additional funding when we qualify for achievement and integration and follow through with writing our goals to match the World Best Workforce Goals, was that you have a racially identified school. And that is the enrollment of a protected class of students in a school within your district is more than 20% compared to the number of protected class students within the same grade level served. And so the MDE, Minnesota Department of Education, identified Cornelia as our racially isolated school. So we qualify to apply for the Achievement and Integration Funds under those two criteria. Next slide.
Okay, so one thing that we want to reiterate and point out as a theme is the integration of the work that we spent time together with World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration. And you'll also see that we added data metrics plan right there in the Venn diagram of 3 key components that are strategically working together at all times in order to align with our 2020 to 23 strategic plan and the priority strategies. Really, all of these things coming together are key in helping us monitor if we are on track and when and if we're reaching our vision and our mission. So that alignment has been integral in our work together this year. World's Best Workforce has 5. I mentioned when I went over the definition and the statute has 5 key areas, goal areas, and I'll highlight those really specifically as we go into that next step of goal areas. And then I'll turn it over.
So achievement and integration has to write our goals to fall within those 3 goal areas. Our goals, though, must address these 3 key areas. That we must address achievement disparities, so reducing academic achievement disparities, teaching equity, increasing student access to more diverse teaching staff, and integration to increase racial and economic integration. Achievement and integration is a 3-year plan. So when you write your achievement and integration plan, it's for 3 years, your goals. And we are at the start of a new 3-year plan. So we, when we're sharing our goals as we go, many of the achievement and integration goals are we call ourselves at baseline data year. So we're giving ourselves this year to collect baseline data. We have until April to turn in what our baseline data is and to finalize what our goals are, to then report back to the state in 2.5 years if we met our goals or did not meet our goals. So we want to provide the most current and accurate data to the state that we can.
And I'm going to have us advance to the even one more slide, please. No, I think I forgot. We're good. Okay, so one thing that I want to highlight and celebrate is that over the past 2 years, we have been able to rejuvenate our World's Best Workforce Committee. Clearly, we had a lot during COVID, and it was hard to really engage with that committee through our virtual years of COVID. So last year, we really had a in-depth team meet 4 times a year. It consists of staff, students, community members, parents, and board members. And I'm really excited. The student voice in the room and the staff voice in the room has been really powerful. So last year we took a lot of time really looking at what our past goals were, grounding in where that aligns with our strategic plan, getting some presentations that were highlights about the strategic plan. And we've had 1 meeting so far this year. They always go very fast and you wish you had more time, but we did have work groups engaged in the 5 key areas of the World's Best Workforce Workforce and give some feedback for the goals. So this is also, I want to point out for World's Best Workforce, these goals are aligned with the data metrics goals that we just presented in September to the board and was in the board packet for anyone to refer to. They are 2-year goals, and so you will see that in our Planning and World's Best Workforce Committee and getting the input directly connected and related to the data metrics goals. So each of these goals comes from the data metrics goals. I'm going to go over them quickly and give you the baseline, and then this is for the specific area of Ready for School goals. Our Early Learning Center, the 4 goals, highlight social emotional learning, literacy, numeracy, and then for the students in the Early Learning Center, those are the first 3 goals. And then the final one really looks at the students that were in the Early Learning Center and then went to Edina Kindergarten and what their FastBridge Universal Screening data shows. So the first being Early Learning Center pre-K will score 97% on the SEL objectives. Our baseline from last spring is 95%. The next one, ELC pre-K, will score 99% on the identified literacy objectives. Our baseline there is really high. It's 99%, so we're really wanting to maintain and dig into that in terms of what next steps we can take with those students that are developmentally appropriate and also continuing their preparation for kindergarten. The ELC pre-K will score 98% on the numeracy objectives, and that baseline is also high at 97%. And then our early learning kiddos that are then transferring to Edina kindergartens, we are looking for 80% of those students to meet benchmark proficiency on FastBridge, and our baseline there is 73%. Okay. So next slide. The second goal that I'll highlight within World's Best Workforce, or what we're attaining for, is all 3rd graders read at grade level. And so there are goals listed for each of those categories that, again, are in direct alignment with the data metrics goals. They're the data metrics goals under literacy, elementary, and obviously, but just to point out, we're focusing on what the kindergarten and K1 measure is, the 1st grade, the 2nd grade, and then the 3rd grade aggressive growth measures. I will just note that the first 3 that are proficiency-based are all 5% jumps from about that or more from the baseline that we have from last spring. And then the aggressive growth data, we're looking to almost double that from what our baseline is this year. And that's a really aggressive, not to be redundant with the word, but aggressive goal, because national norm for aggressive growth is 25%. So we're really striving for a high goal there. Okay, our next slide, please, is that this next goal area will align World's Best Workforce and achievement integration very closely. So I'll point out 2 World's Best Workforce goals, and then I'll turn it over to Director Becaire for the achievement A&I goals. So this is achievement gaps and closing achievement gaps. And the 2 that I'm going to point out are the ones that are not noted A&I, but they're specific to our multilingual learners. These goals are in the data metrics goals report, and they are focused on our ML learners meeting their growth targets. So these are aggressive goals in making sure that we're helping our ML students reach their growth targets and continue to access a high rigor of education.
And we have 3 of our 4 A&I goals. Goal 2 is exactly from the data metrics plan. So we were able to align data metrics plan to World Best Workforce to A&I. So we were able to draw that line through. So that is about closing the achievement gap between students in grades K through 9 who will be at benchmark on FastBridge reading. And so the goal is to get to 80%. Again, we did not have baseline in because we are going to identify the new data from this school year as what our baseline data is at the beginning of this fall. Then goal 3 is again, this is another one that is from the data metrics plan, written exactly like it is there. Again, that through line. It is closing achievement gaps in that we want the percentage of African American, Black, Hispanic, Latino, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islanders, Native American and American Indian, read all that for you this time, students to access advanced courses. This will mirror the Edina High School demographics at the end of the 2026 school year. So it's to mirror or be similar to. And then the achievement and integration goal 4 is to diversify our workforce and increase the number of teachers and administrators of color in Edina Public Schools. Reminding you that this goal is very specifically written because they do one of the achievement and integration goals that we need to write is that students have access to teachers who mirror them. So we have an increasingly culturally proficient teachers is another part of that goal. So that is the data. This baseline data was taken from the spring of 2023. So the 7.8% is not this school year. This is from last school year. If we were to update this one, this data would look a little bit different for this upcoming school year. Next slide. This is World's Best Workforce and A&I students ready for career and college. So this is our A&I goal number 1, and this matches the data metrics plan exactly. You've seen these words before. And this is where we are looking at graduation, hope to increase graduation for all of our students. And we know that to increase graduation for all of our students, the data metrics team identified these key courses for students that if they are passing these courses with a B or better, they are on track for graduating on time and being prepared for career and college readiness. So it's successful completion of Algebra 1 with a B or better, successful completion of biology with a B or better, or successful completion of an ELA course, USA Literature composition with a B or better. And then the goal number 3 also lands under this World Best Workforce goal, which this is the one about students of color accessing the, saying it different every time, sorry about that, that they would match the demographics of Edina High School. Next slide.
Thank you. Okay, and the final World's Best Workforce goal is that all students graduate. So we have our goal there that graduation rates for all of Edina students will be at 98%. So that is highlighting the goals for World's Best Workforce and the alignment for A&I, the achievement and integration. And then if we go on to the next slide, the next 2 slides specifically pull out World's Best Workforce strategies and programming, which intentionally are the action steps that will help us reach these goals. They're the high-level ones. There's lots and lots of work going on a day-to-day basis in our classrooms and in our buildings. So I'm just going to read the main bullet for each of them, and we have a lot of updates for them throughout the year, and happy to answer more in-depth questions once we go to questions. So one being implementing the comprehensive literacy plan. We will get an update on that tonight. There'll be much more depth around that. We've talked about culturally proficient school systems, and that's a huge program and system implementation that will help us reach our goals. In collaboration with Director Becker, we'll be beginning a multilingual learning program review. And then also noted there is the continued social emotional learning review. We're digging into that, going slow, making sure we're getting as much voice in that process as possible. It's a really important goal, and so we'll be providing an update on that later this school year as well. Next slide highlights, oh, you're there, thank you. And enhancing family partnerships, continuing the development, and we're again in early stages of our STEAM programming at the elementary, expanding our career and tech education at the high school and the secondary, and then the last I have there is noting the secondary intentionality between AVID programming, which Director Becker has been leaning into also this year. I will ask for next slide, please, and turn it back.
So like World's Best Workforce, for the 4 A&I goals, we must identify strategies. And so with the strategies that are identified for A&I, we are monitoring the progress of these strategies. So we collect data on these strategies. We collect data points on all of these strategies to see if we are on track towards meeting our goals. So we have 6 strategies, and under Director D. St. Hubert. I'm just going to talk about the title and give a brief overview, but there's a title and there's several, they call them key areas to monitor. So one is AVID programming, and then we want to monitor the students that are participating in AVID programming, making sure that students in AVID program are participating in advanced classes, because that is a part of what AVID programming should do. It should mirror the high school or be exceed what AVID would actually tell you. The students in the AVID program should exceed the number of students in the high school who are attending advanced classes. Strategy number 2 is bridging cultural and socioeconomic barriers. So this is our family partnerships one. So this is where we're really leaning into the work of our cultural liaisons. We are very specifically focusing and hosting for events targeted for our Somali and Hispanic families. We're having a really fabulous Hispanic celebration night tomorrow night. Just want to share that. A little commercial. But we want to increase the number of families, indicating that they feel, so families of color, indicating that they feel welcome and safe in their child's school, and increase the number of parents, caregivers of color serving on building and district advisory committees. So these ones are, I have inherited the A&I plan. Dr. Smazel started it last year and finished it, but I would say probably the bridging cultural and socioeconomic barriers. I have heard very clearly from groups and individuals that this strategy right here is a very key one to all of the stakeholders who were giving feedback on the goals and strategies that they wanted to see in the A&I plan. So next slide. Strategy number 3 is building capacity for equitable and culturally proficient schools. I hope you're starting to see some overlap here, because Jody talked about one of her strategies is CPSS. One of the strategies for A&I is CPSS. So as much as we can, we've tried to align the strategies to the strategic plan, to the data metrics plan, and so that everything has a through line running through it, that we don't have disparate plans out there, that we have everything, everyone can see that we're all working towards the same goal. And then number 4 is MTSS professional development. That is something that the district is involved in. And so we want to, the state of Minnesota is taking all districts through the Minnesota multi-tiered systems of support, and it's about closing achievement gaps for students. We had a global score in the 20s to 30s, which is absolutely okay, because we had not gone through the training before, and our goal is to increase our global score and to maintain an increased global score. Next slide. And then slide number 5 is, strategy number 5 is sense of belonging. We do have a staff affinity group that meets. It did meet for its first time last week, and they do meet 4 times a year, so it's improving sense of belonging for not only, as we say, we want to improve sense of belonging for our students, our families, and for our staff. So this one is looking at improving a sense of belonging for staff, because we know that when you improve sense of belonging for staff, you increase staff wanting to stay in your district, and staff talk and spread the word, and then suddenly more staff of color and individuals that are representing diverse perspectives want to come join your district when you foster that real strong sense of belonging and community. And then strategy number 6 is educational pathways. We want to have the number of staff of color in education pathway working towards a teaching or administration license. So notice I say all staff of color, because we do, we are exploring ways that we can support our staff who do not have a teaching license, to how can we support them exploring teaching as a career. And then We have an education pathway class that is being developed in classes at the high school, so we want to increase the number of students that are involved in those classes. Next slide. And we have resources, the Achievement and Integration Plan summary. There's a summary where it walks you through the data that's being collected on all of those strategies is linked there. And
And the data metrics plan, which we'll be presenting in November, and the data metrics goals, which were presented in September. But I think we've emphasized throughout that we're really trying to align all those pieces and work them together in order to reach our vision and mission. So at that time, or this time, I should say, we're ready for questions.
And this is for questions from the public, not for board members.
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. I didn't know that I was going to have the opportunity to ask a question, so this is exciting. So my question is, I can't remember which of the ANI goals we saw it on, but I think it was number 3. You reference a grade of B as being considered proficient. And something that I'll speak for myself, but I know there are other people at the high school. I don't understand the relationship in between the letter grade of B and the concept of proficiency. And the reason I don't, and what makes me nervous as a teacher at the high school is that, oh, wow. What makes me nervous as a teacher at the high school is, are we going to?
I don't think the microphone's on.
I don't think it's on. I think you have to press.
Maybe the bottom?
No.
How about now? Sorry, I really didn't mean to cause problems.
No, you're not
No?
causing problems.
We have another mic is coming out.
Yeah. Just like that.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Mr. Aram. Hi, everybody. Community. Anne Marie. What I am nervous about, and I feel like other people at the high school are nervous about, is what does it say to a kid who's trying really hard, who gets a C, and could be considered proficient by existing benchmarks, who's then told, I'm sorry, you're not proficient because you're not getting a B. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, what does that do to teacher workload when we have all these students who normally would be considered proficient but now are not? And so I guess my question is, how is the letter grade of B determined to be that benchmark of proficiency? And kind of how are you judging proficiency as related to letter grades? Thank you.
So, really good question, and thank you for asking that. So, this is based on research from universities that say that no matter what program you're in, whether you're going to be an accountant, you're going to be a nurse, or you're going to be a physician, that 80%, retaining 80% of the information demonstrates that you are proficient. You hold enough of that information to move forward. In our particular case, these are gateway courses. So we know that really successfully mastering the material of Algebra 1, really successfully mastering the material of the other courses, those are gateway courses toward ensuring that our students are going to be prepared for post-secondary anything, whether it's going on to college or whether it's going on to work, whatever it is, they are going to be prepared for that. And so we are taking that same standard that universities use and applying it in the high school and actually middle school context as well.
And
bet.
I would like to add a shout out to all of the high school teachers who are doing an absolutely amazing job, because what you don't see here is the baseline data. Your baseline data is 78% of students are meeting that already. So you're doing absolutely amazing and incredible things at the high school.
Any other questions?
I got a pretty big voice. I saw some scuttlebutt at the table, but as a mathematician, I can't let this go by.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw it, that increasing the diversity of the teaching staff from 7.8% to 20%. Your slides show that there's increasing the administration from 20% to 3%.
Oh,
So
thank you.
that's-
We
first of all,
had,
that's an increase, that's a
yeah, we missed a zero there. Thank you for pointing that out. It would be to 30%. Thank you.
that go as a mathematician.
And you should not let that go as a mathematician.
So to follow up on his question, that was never answered, how are the teachers going to be affected by this program? What are they going to have to do to keep their kids at a B level?
I do know that Principal Pitzel had this engaged in some of this conversation last week, I think, if not last week, the week prior at a lead team meeting. And so I don't know that we have the answers to that. It's an important question, and I know we're ready to engage in that with your principal and you as secondary staff. So it was exciting to see that he was experiencing the data metrics for the first time, bringing it back to the staff. I was in the building during conferences and was able to connect with him. So it's an important piece of the question. So thanks for re-bringing it up, and excited to move forward with that.
And research tells us with Minnesota multi-tiered systems of support that we should be able to, with our general curriculum, meet the needs of 80 to 85% of our students with no interventions in place. So that is also where that number comes from. It's not a number that we just made up. It was leaning into the multi-tiered systems of support research, the triangle that many of us have seen where it says this, we should be able to meet 80 to 85% of needs within the classroom there. And I cannot reiterate enough, you need to give yourself credit. You're doing that already. It might look like a scary number, but you're already doing it at the high school. We're asking that we maintain it, that we keep what we're already doing.
Are there any other questions from the public? Okay, I'm going to return us from recess and then open it up to board members if they have questions about the A&I report or World's Best Workforce report. No? All right, well, that was easy. All right, thank you both very much for presenting this. We're going to move on to our hearings from members of the public. Pursuant to Board Policy 206, we ask that you do not duplicate information that has been previously presented. If you have a complaint about an individual employee, a board member, or students in the district, please direct any of these comments to the appropriate site administrator, the superintendent, or submit them in writing to the board. The board typically does not respond to or have discussion on items presented, but questions raised during presentations will receive follow-up as directed by the board. And I'd like to remind all speakers that your presentations are limited to 3 minutes. And we will hopefully have a timer up on there we go. That will let you know when your 3 minutes are up, and I will also cue you verbally when the 3 minutes are up. So please be mindful of that. Normally, as I said, we do not comment on what people are speaking about tonight, but I do want to make a public statement tonight. The board and district realize that many people are here to speak to us tonight, and we've received many emails with concerns about due process minutes for special education teachers in our district. We fully support any individual who wants to address the board tonight, and we also want to provide clarity around the message that has been sent out that it has unfortunately been spread to the community that's lacking context. The district is currently engaged in negotiations with our teachers union, Edina Education, or Edina Minnesota, Education Minnesota Edina. Everyone here values our special education teachers, the incredible work they do, the value of time for due process, and the students that they care for. What negotiations are supposed to be about is problem solving collaboratively. The problem we are working to solve, as every other district is as well across the state of Minnesota is that there is a finite amount of funding for multiple complex problems. Our negotiations are important, and discussions, problem solving, and collaborative solutions should be a standard part of this process. While we cannot provide all the facts on the current state of our negotiation discussions, we want to make one note about what is going on. Our special education teachers receive 200 minutes per week for due process work, in addition to what is provided for all other non-special education teachers. Comparisons to other metropolitan school districts show that this is a unique benefit our district alone provides. The approximate cost of this time is $1.5 million annually, and this directly impacts our ability to increase our educators' salaries commensurate with other competing districts. Thank you. I'm now going to move on to our request to address the board. First up is Owen Michelson. Didn't want you to have to wait to the. I appreciate it. No problem.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, it's great to see you all. I think I've told some of you that my mother babysat Bob Dylan. She knew him as Robbie Zimmerman. Dylan's words really speak to me about the school board. First, for those of you in our studio audience and for those of you viewing online, I used to be a somebody. I used to be a member of this Edina School Board. And you may wonder, how does that make you feel? Well, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone. So tonight, the complete unknown, the nobody, comes to speak with the somebodies. And I can kind of tell what you're thinking right now. Owen, you've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend when you keep talking about off-cycle elections. Well, the times are changing. The city used to like to run these elections, but it doesn't anymore. The old order is rapidly fading. But hey, Mr. Tambourine, I've got some news for you. On the jingle jangle morning of Wednesday, November 8th, EPS, Edina Public Schools, will have a lot less jingle jangle because the day before we will have binged $150,000 on an uncontested election. But that's not what really gets to me about off-cycle elections. What really gets me tangled up in blue are the polling places. They're desolate. They're lonely. Nobody's there. Turnout at off-cycle elections is often just 20%. With an uncontested election, we're going to be lucky to get 10. I fill in my ovals at Southview City Gym. When I go vote there, I'm going to feel so lonesome. It's going to feel like Chernobyl. But I've got a solution, and I want to hear what you all think about this. I think it's going to make the polling places less lonely and more inclusive. Okay, so you ready? I would not feel so all alone if everybody just got to vote. Okay, I thought there's going to be some laughter with that one. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with my concluding remark, and that is that you got to serve somebody. We all have to serve somebody. It may be the devil, it may be the Lord, but you got to serve somebody. It may be the taxpayers, it may be the parents, it may be the teachers, it may be the students, it may be the union, but you got to serve somebody. It may be the voters. Next time, let's serve the voters with an on-cycle election, or I may be back to torment you with more Dylan.
Thank you, Owen, and just to provide clarification, from a data perspective, because the city's also running an election, there's no cost to the district, so there isn't a $150,000 cost.
I spoke with Sharon Allison today about that, and she said it's still open in this.
So, thank you. Moving on to Megan Roth.
Hello, my name is Megan Roth, and I'm a mother to a child with special needs site-based program at Countryside Elementary. I know you addressed the due processing earlier, but I did prepare a speech, so I'd like to say it.
You absolutely.
I sit here before you as an ally for special needs students as well as their stellar teachers, or as my mother so lovingly refers to them, as angels on earth. I have recently been made aware of the potential for due process changes during the contract negotiations between the district and our teachers. It is my understanding that the current teachers are allotted 200 minutes of due process time per week, and revised due process time would be 9 working days. According to some rough math, and assuming that there's 36 weeks of school, the new 9 working day plan is a 40% decrease in due process time. This has raised many questions among parents and me. Due process time is time for special education teachers to take on their case management role. The teachers are already stretched so thin with the para and special needs substitute teacher shortage. Who will be the substitute teacher for my child during these 9 days of due process time? We all know that our children and our teachers are already getting less support with substitute paras, especially since a lot of them do not have special needs training. I trust my son's teacher with my son's life as I do every Monday through Friday. I don't want 2 weeks of a substitute teacher when that's not necessary. If less time is provided, this will cause even more burnout. I don't want to lose our wonderful staff because of the added stress of this change. The lack of para support, the demands associated with due process, and the uncertainty of due process specialist roles are a recipe for creating more and more burnout for our special education teachers. It's not a question for how long they will stay, but more of when will they leave. I encourage you to visit a special needs classroom so you can fully understand what you're asking of the special needs staff. In general, the special needs classrooms thrive on consistency and regular schedules, including introducing substitute teachers on a regular basis will disrupt these schedules and will have an adverse impact on their learning and their ability to stay regulated. We moved to Edina due to its reputation of high-quality special ed programs. As you move forward with negotiations, please consider the impact of the teachers with reducing the due process time and the impact on the students of introducing substitute teachers on a regular basis.
Thank you, Ms. Roth.
Thank you.
There's also. There's a bunch of chairs up here for people standing in back if you guys want to sit. Okay. Jack Lee?
All right, I want to clarify, first of all, this is red. So Old Navy was a little short this evening on red, so you know, Karen, I've got a lot of green, but not that much red. Good evening, Dr. Stanley, members of the board. Thank you for your service. My name is Jack Lee. I'm the father of Timothy Robert Brandon Lee. Some of you know him from Highlands, and now he's a student at Southview Middle School in the Unified program. And I'm speaking about due process, obviously. And we love the students, and I would tell you the staff are what make this program. Staff are incredible. The Unified program is amazing. As you said, with all due respect, Zellenberg, this is different from other districts. I'm going to tell you, that's a good thing. It's an amazing thing. I have friends in other districts who say, what do you have? It's an incredible thing. It's meeting the needs of those students. It's not extra. It's meeting the needs of those students, and it's because of those staff. The staff are amazing, as Ms. Roth just said. They are stretched they're stretched like crazy, and we'll push them beyond. So that's my concern is the staff. We absolutely understand that you have spending pressure. I grew up in Edina. We lived all over the country and moved back here 20 years ago for the school. We have 2 daughters who graduated from Edina, and Timothy is going through the school district now. And we moved here for reasons like this. It's an incredible program. As I think you said, Karen, the whole student. It's about the whole student. And for special needs kids, that doesn't happen in a lot of districts. You don't get the whole student. In Edina, you do. And it's the Unified program that's really special. So again, we understand the spending pressures. One of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou. Hope and fear cannot occupy the same place. Invite one to stay. We would ask that you invite hope to stay and that you stay with due process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Maura Caldwell? Maura Caldwell? Yeah, Maura Caldwell?
I'm just going to be looking at my phone for a little while. Just kidding. I'm reading it from here. Sorry. My name is Maura Caldwell, and I have 3 children in the district right now. My oldest, Benjamin, is a 2nd grader at Highlands. He receives special education services. And not that anyone asked, but he is an amazing and beautiful boy who had meningitis as a baby. This caused brain damage and changed the trajectory of his life and mine. Benjamin works harder than anyone I know just to do basic things like speaking and drinking from an open cup. He loves school more than just about anything in his life. So I am here today to advocate for the amazing special ed teachers who work in this district to keep their due process time as it is. For anyone, I think we all are, but I wrote this in case there were other people here, not super familiar with special ed and this term, due process is all of the required paperwork and logistical indirect work that our special ed teachers do. They're currently allotted the 200 minutes per week, which is just over 3 hours to get these things done for every student on their caseload. It is woven into their days and able to be used as their schedules and students allow. The proposed change of taking those minutes away and replacing them with 9 days a year of non-student contact seems short-sighted for a few reasons. This work is a continuous effort, and saving it for 1 day a month would not be best practice. Our teachers know best how to use this time and incorporate it into their schedules. Each day, second point, teachers are out is a burden to our students and to them. The prep work to get ready for a sub is so much, especially when they're trying to set up individual students on their caseload for success in their absence. My mom was a teacher, and I watched her work through many illnesses and laryngitis every year because it was easier than getting a sub. Our kids, like all kids, thrive on consistency and relationships, and like Megan said, removing their caseworker for a full day every month when there is an alternative solution is not best practice for anyone. Also, saying their absence will be covered by a sub is one thing, but finding a sub that's ready for a special education classroom is another. And I can speak from experience and say that when some special ed teachers are out for a day, especially those in resource positions, it's very possible their vacancies will go unfilled. Those students will not be served. This proposed change would eliminate approximately 2,000 minutes each year of due process time that our teachers are using and already stretched thin using those. This is time that they would no longer have, making their jobs harder and increasing the risk of using amazing educators who might not have the capacity for one more straw on their overburdened educator back. So thank you for listening and continuing to take these issues into consideration as you negotiate.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Katie Fabrizio.
Hello, Katie Fabrizio, thank you, and I'm here to talk again about the same issue. As a parent of a child receiving special education services at Southview Middle School, I know that my son and a lot of his peers arrive at school each day with some barriers that they have to overcome to be ready to learn. Through constant collaboration with his special education team and their unique skills, knowledge, and relationship with my son, we've created a successful plan. But this plan requires frequent attention, fine-tuning, and communication, sometimes even on a daily basis. Like even this morning, I had a phone call that I received where we had to make an adjustment to his day based on an unexpected behavior. It's hard to imagine a substitute being able to step into this really complex and ever-changing, highly individualized environment. The learning process, given the unique ways that our students require their instruction. I've also seen that these disruptions impact behavior, even with my own son. More times than not, when he has exhibited a new and challenging behavior, it is because there was a sub present. This is not a criticism, though, of the substitutes themselves, but rather an acknowledgement that the routine and familiarity is key to unlocking the learning potential of our children. The ripple effects of these disruptions should not be minimized. It may be hard to quantify what is not learned and what potential is not achieved due to these increased disruptions. But I do know that the effects will be felt by the student, the parents, and the teachers long after that sub is gone. Therefore, I recommend that the special education due process time be kept at 200 minutes per week, as it currently is, rather than moving to the 9 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fabrizio. Ellen Munt.
Hi, I'm Ellen Munt, and I'm a special ed teacher at the high school. I'm an EHS graduate, and I've been teaching in the district for over 25 years. I'm here to talk about the due process minutes. As an EHS teacher, my due process time is currently assigned as 1 class hour within a 7-period day schedule. I also have a second hour designated as prep. These 2 class hours of non-student duty time is similar to my general ed colleagues. However, parts of my due process work can only be completed during student hours: classroom observations, academic testing, and student transition interviews. Having the flexibility to access students during one of these 2 hours is crucial to both me and the students I serve. To compensate for this loss, you're proposing I access 9 workload relief days throughout the year, so like 1 a month. If we do the math, I currently get 800 minutes a month. 1 8-hour school day is not an even trade. So how would these absences look for me? So due to the district-wide sub-shortages, these days can only be taken in the middle of the week: Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. At the high school, each of these days has a different schedule, which means I see different students at varying lengths of time, or maybe not at all. These days cannot be taken before or after a break in the district calendar. So for example, this week, I can only request to use Tuesday. Each month, there are between 9 and 11 days that one can access for managing workload, and this is true for anyone in the district. There are currently 23 special ed teachers at the high school who deliver various services to our diverse students. So this means on average, 2 to 3 of us are doing paperwork instead of teaching, in addition to those who are just absent. Many of us require a sub, which come at a cost and are at a short supply. Many of our students don't do well with change, so who is gone, what is planned, who is subbing has to be considered. This new proposal feels inefficient and would be a scheduling nightmare for my department, not to mention chaotic for our students. I have taken workload relief days, and once in a while these days are canceled due to lack of available subs. Therefore, accessing this proposed solution is unreliable in supporting my efforts of being compliant on behalf of the district. Accessing these 9 days also means I'm not delivering services to my students, nor am I co-teaching. Being away from my students this much feels unprofessional to me and does not include the days that I'm out sick, taking personal leave, or doing other professional leave duties for the district. So this is what I think about when I process this proposal. It's inefficient and chaotic, it feels unreliable, it feels unprofessional. This would be a huge change for our district, and I'm having a really hard time accepting it as best practice for anyone. So I would love to continue this conversation with anyone that it seems appropriate to, so it can really understand what this proposal means for the special ed staff across the district. Because honestly, 3 minutes is not enough time to say what I want to say, and there is so much to say. Thank you.
Walter Carlson.
Hello, thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us today. I'm a teacher at the high school, and I work with some of the highest needs students in our district as far as medical needs are concerned. So the first thing that breaks my heart when I think about this proposal is the amount of time I would have to step away and the inconsistency that's going to come to my students. Each of my students have an IEP that's roughly 20 to 30 pages long that needs to be reviewed at minimum once annually. This is a big process. Yeah, a day is nice to take to look at it, but I also need time, like has been mentioned previously, to observe my students. I need time to contact all of the different all of the different service providers, some of my students have up to 10 of those as well. There is a lot of organization that needs to go into how I spend my time scheduling meetings and keeping myself on top of the due process work that my students have. I want to think about the mission of Edina Public Schools while we're making this decision about how we spend our due process time. Our mission is to create a dynamic learning community, delivering educational excellence and preparing all students to realize their full potential. I think about all students as a special ed teacher. I have to think about how each of our students needs something different. Every single teacher in here has a different set of skills that they need to use on a daily basis. They have a different set of contacts they need for their due process work to make sure that the students' rights are met by their due process paperwork. My question is, how does this proposal help serve the full potential of our most unique students? I understand that there are decisions that have to be made, and I'm comfortable with making sacrifices. But when I'm making a sacrifice that I feel violates the mission of the school that I believe in and I work for and the students who I support, I want to make sure that we are all making that decision and thinking about it heavily. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Doctor? Jason Doctor?
Good evening, Dr. Stanley, Chair Allenberg, other board members, and the community watching from home or present in the room. I am Jason Doctor, and I'm the president of Education Minnesota, Edina. I was expecting to go first, so some of my speech doesn't quite align, but there you go. At the September regular meeting of the school board, I cited data demonstrating how far our current salary schedule has fallen behind our comparable districts. I ended by stating that it should be no surprise that Edina teachers feel undervalued because the data suggests that they are undervalued. I know the district's negotiations team feels this urgency around the salary schedule. However, the deficiencies in our salary schedule are not the only reasons that our panorama data continues to show concerning climate and belonging scores. Take, for example, the experience of our preschool teachers. In 2017, Edina Public Schools made commitments to preschool teachers and EME when they agreed to move all teachers in the Early Learning Center onto the contract and onto the teacher salary schedule. We had finally achieved equal pay for equal work. Through a series of actions and decisions, the district failed to uphold these commitments, ultimately moving preschool teachers off our contract and onto a salary schedule that pays them 16 to 40% less. This breach of trust has had a continuing negative impact on morale. Let me be clear, this board and this leadership team were not responsible for those decisions. With the change in statute, it is clear that preschool teachers are members of our bargaining unit. There is an opportunity for this board and this leadership team to right the wrong and repair the damage. Another underlying reason for our panorama data is workload. Teachers need the tools and time to do the job they have been hired to do. This is difficult to do. Schools for decades have been starved for resources. But even during these years of starvation, there are examples of partnership. In 2015, the district and EME were able to partner and deliver supports for our special education teachers, one of which was 200 minutes of built-in weekly due process time. Now the district has proposed rolling back that time or replacing it with workload relief days. Yet the experts are behind me, and you've already heard from a couple. And they can speak to this proposal because they know what they need to do this job and to best meet the needs of their students. I will just say that you can't improve climate if you don't offer a fair and competitive salary, abide by your commitments, honor the work teachers do equally, and provide them with the tools and the time to do the job. Thank you.
Jessica Cherney. Jessica Cherney. Is it Cherney? Sorry about that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today regarding the proposal to shift weekly due process minutes to the 9 workload relief days. I'm Jess Turney, and I work in a Setting 3 site-based classroom at Creek Valley Elementary School. Our program provides educational services to students with highly complex learning needs who spend the majority of their school day in our classrooms to receive the support they require to make educational progress. In my 14 years of teaching, I have learned that consistency, routine, structure, and staff expertise lend themselves to the most optimal learning environment for our students. In this time of staff shortages, we work hard on a daily basis to continue the highest level of educational programming. One component of this is built-in due process time to plan, evaluate, and compose high-level, individualized education plans that meet the needs of our complex students. We do this on a timeline that is dictated by the federal government and the Minnesota Department of Education. Students and families are essential participants in this process, and we work regularly with families to revise and conference over the students' needs and goals. It is no secret that staff shortages have made working in education challenging. The teacher's complete absence from the classroom for an additional 9 days during the year does not best serve students. When faced with the question of whether I will be out of the classroom to complete my mandated paperwork or at school to provide a safe and cohesive learning environment, I will always choose the students, their safety, and their learning. This is an unfair position, as then my necessitated paperwork must be completed outside of my contract day. Additionally, because of the complexity of my students, I spend many hours preparing a single day's subplans. This is not an efficient use of a teacher's time or our district's resources. Lastly, our students' due process requirements and entitlements cannot and should not be on a timeline of a day when I can find adequate sub-coverage. It needs to be a protected element of our daily duties. Please consider protecting this necessary and regularly weekly scheduled time on behalf of our students and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Nabel. Rachel Nabel. I'm sorry, Canably? Canably. Rachel Canably.
All right. Good evening, Superintendent Stanley, Chair Allenberg, and members of the board. My name is Rachel Canably, and I'm a site-based special education teacher at Southview Middle School. This is my 16th year as a special education teacher and my 3rd year in Edina Public Schools. I'm so proud to teach at Southview. It is a truly special place to work. Watching our school community every day fills me with hope, and I am proud of the work that has won us the title of an AMLE School of Distinction and a National Banner Unified Champion School. As a site-based teacher, we know things come up and understand that sometimes means needing to be flexible with our prep, but having that due process prep time really saves us. We've heard from the legislators that this is something other districts are looking to implement. As a school of excellence, we'd love to lead the way in excellence for special education teachers. As I spoke to my colleagues, here are other points of concern. Special ed teachers currently have due process minutes and still have to use workload relief days throughout the year to accomplish paperwork. As a site-based special education teacher, like you heard others say, my scholars have many needs and a large team of people who support their learning. We collaborate and create modified and adapted learning materials every day. The removal of due process minutes means I will have to use my prep not to prepare instructional materials and to teach, but to make my sub-plans for my absence, which takes quite a while. The removal of due process minutes means a significant uptick in workload relief days, each teacher taking 1 per month. One more that's just kind of specific to our site-based teachers. It takes a lot of preparation and planning for us to be gone from our programs. Our scholars need consistency, and many become dysregulated when there is a change in staff. As a site-based teacher, our scholars have individualized and unique learning plans. Taking 1 day per month for a workload relief day would be hard on our programs, often requiring other team members or our paraprofessionals to step in and support in our absence to ensure the safety of all scholars. Our scholars need consistency and routine, which means having us in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Griswold. Donna Griswold.
Thank you for letting me share with you. A lot of my colleagues already shared about the impact of the due process time if it's not maintained at the current level of 200 minutes a week. In the resource room, in the elementary settings, we look a little bit different. We do have our prep time every day. I can't say I get prep time every day because I don't close my door. If a student comes in to take a test, my door is open. If a student is having a meltdown, my door is open. If a paraprofessional needs to bend my ear to ask a question, my door is open. If classroom teachers need to come and it's my prep time, I'm not going to push them away. So prep time is great and wonderful, and I do need it to prep for all of my kids. In the elementary, we typically range from 15 to 17, 18 kids on our caseloads. Every one of those students has individual needs. Every one of those students has an individual lesson plan. My lesson plans change daily. When kids come into my room, I have a map of where I think we're going to go, but by the end of the day, that map may change, and my lesson plans have to be changed each day to meet the individual needs of where those students are. You are aware of the due process minutes and what that means following the state guidelines. When a student, I'll give you an example. When a student is looking at, or we're looking at an evaluation for a student, we have 30 school days to do that. Those 30 school days involve testing, they involve interviews, they involve reaching out to all of the service providers that might be on that plan, trying to get all of that done in one day and get everybody lined up. I don't work with full-time people. We have a part-time OT. We have a school psychologist that's there 4 days a week. Trying to negotiate to get everybody on the same day so I can take my paperwork day to complete an evaluation or complete an IEP just isn't going to work. I'm doing things on the fly a lot. Today, I sent an email to a teacher and said, I'd like to start testing the student tomorrow. And the teacher said, well, if you take her during that time, she's going to have to miss math class. And I said, well, I can cancel students to take that student and test, but then my other students get canceled. If I'm able to maintain that due process time every day, I can kind of fluctuate when I can pull that student for testing. If I'm allotted one day, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to pull that student, get all the other paperwork done, coordinate with all the other people. It's just not going to work. One paperwork day a month. I'd like to say that I am very efficient and I can get my work done during a school day, but there's rarely a night that I don't go home without my laptop and I'm working on paperwork. It's just something that is ongoing, and I think special ed teachers navigate it well, but there's too many moving parts to say that we can have it all just on one day and get it all done and meet guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana Zetterlund.
Hello. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know how it sounded. Thank you for letting me speak. I would like to urge the district and the board members during negotiations to end the carve-out for the early education teachers in our district, to pay them the same rate and let them be recognized for what they are, teachers. Our pre-K teachers must have a degree, be licensed, just like all our other teachers at every other level, and my request is simple: equal pay for equal work. As a kindergarten teacher, I know how incredibly important our preschool and early childhood teachers are, how much their role impacts our students' learning as they grow. We saw earlier on the presentation that it starts with the, the early childhood education. That's to get our kids ready for school, right? These teachers deserve to be paid the same as the other educators in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Russell.
Hi, my name is Katie Russell. I'm an Edina grad and a teacher at the high school. The district's motto is for each and every student to discover their possibilities and thrive. All of us in this room have committed to Dr. Stanley to memorize that, and we carry the weight of that motto on our shoulders with each and every student and each and every lesson that we prepare. We're told regularly that we're valuable as staff, but I don't feel valued when, as a veteran teacher, I'm at the very bottom of the pay scale, but my take-home pay is less than last year because my step increase doesn't cover the amount of insurance benefits that I have to pay. It doesn't make me feel valued when year after year my contract expires and negotiations are not settled. It doesn't make me feel valued as a special education teacher when I'm told my due process time is being threatened to be converted to 9 workload relief days. As we've talked about tonight, being gone from school takes me away from the students I'm hired to serve. Preparing a sub plan is one of the hardest things that a teacher does, and this proposal will make my job harder. It doesn't make me feel valued when I hear that the preschool teachers on my contract who do equally rigorous work do not get equal pay. Edina is known as the best nationwide. We're the best at many things. We even love being hated for being the best, don't we? We're called cake eaters, but we thrive on those kinds of monikers. We have the most state championships. We've talked about that tonight. The teachers in front of you work so hard for students, so we deserve the best pay and the best benefits package. Everyone already assumes that we already get the best pay because we're Edina. Whenever I meet new people and they find out that I work at Edina, they assume that I'm making top dollar. They assume that I'm being paid the most in the state. They are always surprised when I tell them we are not the state champions in salary and benefits. In fact, the average Edina teacher could make $6,000 more if they went to a comparable district. In fact, right now the high school is short a case manager, and each and every case manager has taken on additional workload to fill that vacancy. That new hire left and is making more money in another district. I know that as a school board you brag about hiring the best staff in the state. I agree, we are the best staff in the state. Please find a way to make us #1 in the state for salary and benefits. I would like to propose a new motto, that each and every Edina teacher receive the best pay and benefits and thrive. Thank you.
Elizabeth James. Elizabeth James.
Good evening, everyone. Superintendent Stanley, Chair Allenberg, and school board members and directors. Hi, everyone. My name is Beth James. I'm an early childhood special education teacher here in the district. I am also a community member and proud parent to 2 Edina Public School students, where my oldest son receives significant special education supports. I am here this evening to speak to you as a special education teacher about the importance of retaining the 200 weekly due process minutes, which have existed as an agreement within our teaching contract since 2015. The district's proposal to remove this agreement and replace it with 9 workload relief days impacts the fluid and ongoing nature of our due process work and would compromise student services. Due process includes the completion of evaluations and reevaluations determining eligibility and needs for special education services. Due process is creating individualized education programs, IEPs and IFSPs, individualized family service plans, and maintaining ongoing progress monitoring and reports. Due process is amending IEPs to reflect changing student needs or changing guidance from the district, state, and federal levels. Due process is proactive and responsive and is ongoing day-to-day work. Shifting from weekly due process time would impede our ability to work responsively, which would either result in incomplete work or the more likely scenario of teachers and providers working outside our contractual day on a regular basis. The district's proposal also significantly reduces due process time as a whole. As I wrap up, I think it's important to address the impact of the district's proposal on students. Quite simply, this change would diminish student service minutes. There are not always substitutes available to cover when a teacher is out, and as you probably know, and as was mentioned, there is a shortage of special education teachers, let alone substitutes. Even when substitutes are available, it is not the same as having the teachers who are familiar with the students, particularly for learners with identified special education needs. Moreover, there are never substitutes for related service providers. Those services would simply be lost. I asked the district to maintain the 200 due process minutes a week as a part of our teacher contract. This is for the benefit of our special education providers, so we can meaningfully complete our work. But most of all, this is for the benefit of our students, so they may receive the service minutes outlined in their IEPs. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our community comments for the evening. We're now going to move on to a report from the Edina Education Fund. Thank you for sitting through the comments and the World's Best Workforce Report.
I feel like it was something we said, but.
Welcome. Once again, we have Kathy Rendelman and Nikki Williams from the Edina Education Fund here to talk to the board, but mostly the community about what you bring to our district.
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Stanley, Chair Allenberg, all school board members and cabinet members. I'm Nikki Williams. I've been on the Edina Ed Fund board for about 5 years. I'm the chair. And just want to thank you for having Kathy and I here tonight and the opportunity to tell you about some of the wonderful things that we're able to help partner on with the district. Yes, so we'll start with the first slide. We'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our vision is to ensure educational excellence in Edina Public Schools for all students and staff. A lot of these vision and mission is going to sound pretty similar to our strategic plan or the district's strategic plan, and that is not by accident. Our mission as an independent, mission-aligned partner of the Edina Public Schools, the Edina Education Fund secures incremental funding for district-wide programs and services that strengthen academic learning and support the whole person on their educational journey. Who do we serve? We serve all Edina Public Schools students and staff. All right. Give it over to Kathy.
So why the Edina Education Fund? Well, as we just talked about, we have to fund these wonderful 10 sites of ours. And if you look at our revenue as a percent of expenses, which is typically how the Ed Fund looks at things, we run out of money usually when we look at budgets. Typically the state, as we've seen this is a picture of last year's budget looking at this current year, 23-24. State came in with about 60% of what it costs to raise a student, if you think about that for the year. Local property taxes, including our levies and our bonds, came in with an additional 36%. Thank goodness that we passed those levies and bonds, because imagine what we would be if we did not. And then our federal comes in, and it's actually about 1.5%. And what's left over there is what we refer to as that funding gap piece. That's that percentage or that amount. Last year, you looked at about $4 million. How do you make that work in the budget? How do you make those adjustments to make that work? At the Ed Fund, we laugh and chuckle every once in a while and call that job security. But it's not. That's how we look at that, and that funding gap is on our next slide with how do we make adjustments to that gap realistically and appropriately as a district. First of all, we look at the state typically and say, or the federal government, how can you fund public education better? How can we make sure that our students have a place to go in a public school that is fully funded by our government? And we've made some decent progress. We've had some real improvements in the last few years that I think we all can agree upon, but there's always room for improvement. One of the ways that we always tell parents they can get involved with is with our Legislative Action Committee and work with that group. And then we have the lovely work that you all do to making a balanced budget, and you go back and you see where you can adjust things and you bring it back down to a realistic level. That's where we get our AAA bond rating. And we make things work, because that's what we do. When that's all said and done, then the Ed Fund board sits down and says, where did the school board make adjustments? Where did the team make adjustments that maybe we can step in and help a little bit? A for instance would be when the school board wanted to do literacy training. And there wasn't the money to start it right away, but what if the Ed Fund kicked in a little bit? Could we start it now instead of later? Could we maybe start it a year ahead of time, or maybe kick in some money to get more teachers up to speed faster than we could have without our help? That's what we try to do. Next slide. Since 1995, that we've been around, the Ed Fund has just broken the $8 million mark for what we've contributed to the Edina Public Schools. That's pretty exciting. That's funding in all of our areas, be it literacy, STEAM, or mental health and wellness. That's funding to individual activities or groups for our students to be able to make sure that they are a whole person, well-rounded student when they graduate, and everything in between. We're pretty proud of that number. What you're going to see, if we move to the next slide, in the later on in your consent agenda, is what we did this past year in 2022, 2023. In front of you this evening, you'll see this as part of your packet. What did we contribute? We're just under $500,000. We've laid out kind of the large spots that went to in the district. Literacy, $118,000. Mental health, almost $73,000. $30,000 in STEAM. We also had large areas to Edina Rotary Global Scholars, almost $50,000. Another $65,000 in senior scholarships to our graduating seniors. So just some ideas of places that we give amazing amounts of funding that came in. One thing of note, last year, though we've been working with the city of Edina and the federal government on the ARPA grant that the Ed Fund received, none of those funds actually were received last year. So the $472,000 that you're looking at is not inclusive of any ARPA funding. That entire grant will be coming in this fiscal year, not last fiscal year. So that is strictly, you're looking at individual donations when you look at this number. Next slide. How do we typically bring in money? We look at the Ed Fund, we like to group things into three main areas. We look at literacy, STEAM, and mental health and wellness. And I challenge you to throw somewhere at me in the schools or at any of our board members that we couldn't talk you into placing that into either literacy, STEAM, or mental health and wellness. And that's on purpose. Pretty much anything we do during our school day or anything a student does during their school day should fit into one of those three categories. Whether it's a ball they want to sit on or a three-legged stool, or we're going to call that mental health. Or whether it's financial literacy, well, that's literacy. It's just different kind of literacy. Everything fits into one of those categories, and that's how we do our fundraising. When we look at literacy for this year, we have a goal in each of these programs, so I wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on what we are fundraising for this year. Our 2023-2024 goal for literacy is $110,000. That is basically for some letters and Aspire materials and support training for our secondary. That might go up, it might go down, but that's what we're going to start for this year. We've also worked in a little bit of funding in there to maybe look at some district preschool screening kits. We've got a bunch of kids that come in for preschool screening. What if we sent them home with something? What if we said, hey, another hornet in the hive? Go home with a little fun bag that says that. Or let's make sure that you come back and you get excited to be a hornet. Also, as I previously mentioned, in addition to this 110, you're going to see the $300,000 come in this year from the ARPA grant that we received with our work with the city of Edina. So hopefully you'll see $410,000 come in this year for literacy. For STEAM, we're looking to bring in $62,000 this year. $27,000 is earmarked for the Student Spaceflight Experiment Program, of which we're entering year 2. That's pretty exciting. I have the privilege to work with the aero engineering class over at the high school, which they're working really hard on their projects. And I actually got to see last year's winning team put their experiment in a tube today and send that off to over to NASA for that to be loaded into the rocket. Pretty exciting. And then we've set aside about $35,000 this year for other STEAM initiatives, anything from Project Lead the Way to different arts programs. Mental health and wellness. We've set aside $105,000 this year. $20,000 of that is for staff wellness support. We haven't quite outlined what that's going to look like yet. I'm working with Anne Marie and her team, trying to figure out how can we put in place something
that's going to create good, positive change for our staff. And we're not talking about necessarily bringing in soup again, but maybe some change. What can make a real difference, and what types of programming can we bring in that we'll see some improvement in wellness in our staff? And then the other $85,000, that's typically the number we've been spending on benevolence funding. That's for our underinsured and uninsured students, for them to access the mental health supports that we already have in place in our building. It covers 12 sessions for a student with one of our mental health providers. Comes out this year to be about $1,848 per student for them to get 12 sessions with one of our mental health providers. During that time, our staff works with that family or that student to make sure that they can, if they need to, have some sort of support after those 12 sessions so that they have some amount of continuity of care when those 12 sessions are up. What else do we do, in case it's not enough? The Ed Fund offers some services. We have fiscal sponsorships and PTO partnerships. Our fiscal sponsorships range from anything from Edina bands to working with other arts programs. We work with Edina Unified as a fiscal sponsorship. This year we signed an agreement with Edina Early Learning Center, meeting with them tomorrow. We'll be working with them and hosting them on our website so that they can fundraise and not have to deal with their own website issues to do that. We also work with Edina Senior Scholarships and the Edina Alumni Association. Typically give out between 55 and 60 scholarships a year. This year we're looking at 58. It's my guess of where it's going to come in at. We'll see if I'm right. We also, this is about the time of year I start getting phone calls from graduating classes of Edina wondering if they're going to have a reunion. Get in touch with their reunion chairs and make sure that they've got a tour of the high school next summer, that they have somewhere to host their website on our webpage. We take their ticket processing for them, and we hold their funding in terms of all their donations and make sure that they can pay their bills on time. So what I always like to tell people is that really our community is the Edina Education Fund. Nikki and I and our board just run the show. We sit in a boardroom and we help make sure that the bills get paid and we can follow what it is that all of you as a community want to have done with these funds. But it is the Edina Education Fund that is truly the Edina community. And one of the things that truly drives this community is by having sustaining donors. It means such a great deal to have our community support our work, but to have them do that on a regular basis is something that we can plan for. It's something that helps us build a budget, and it helps us sustain everything that we do year-round for our students. We would ask our community to consider being sustaining donors and give $5 a month or $10 a month to the Ed Fund to make sure that we can continue this work, that we can provide literacy training to our teachers, that we can give that student the mental health support that they need, or we can offer that club the support that they want at the high school so that they can have those great ideas in the meetings that they want to have. And that we can continue the great work in our mission that greatly supports the work of the Edina Public School mission. And thank you for having us here tonight. Are there questions for Nikki or I?
Do board members have questions or comments? Director Neville?
I do. I mean, thank you. And this is to the community as much as it is to Kathy and Nikki, and thank you for your amazing work. Thank you, Sue. Sue Carlson is also here this evening, has been with the Ed Fund, I believe, longer than anyone else currently serving, and that is quite a legacy. Thank you. I am so proud of the Edina Education Fund. It's something that we as a community can be proud of, just like 200 state championships, just like our U.S. News and World Report ranking, our niche ranking. We were one of the first education funds. I don't know that we were the first in Minnesota, but we were one of the first, and it was truly innovative. And there's more opportunity for what we can do. So my question, and I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot for this, but I know you're really good with numbers on this. Do you know about what percentage of our current Edina families contribute to the Ed Fund?
That's a really good question. I was going to bring this up and I forgot. So it's like you were planted, but you're not. Right now, we've got about 6.5% of the current families in Edina Public Schools donate to the Ed Fund. And if you want to be a little competitive, because we were saying on how we've got 200 state championships and we're a wonderful school district, which I agree with all of that, we are one of the smaller education funds in the state of Minnesota.
And that's a challenge. And I really do challenge everyone in our community who is able to do so to please contribute. I think we have and they get another figure. Many of our educators contribute, and that's impressive. We should match that or do better from our community, because this fund truly reaches each and every student. It makes a difference. The funding gap is real. We've addressed it in more than one way tonight. Dr. Stanley addressed that well, and Chair Allenberg addressed that. So one of the single biggest ways that we can make a difference as a community and show this pride for Edina, but for all of our kids, is to support the Ed Fund. I could go on, but it is, thank you. Thank you for doing everything you do.
Director Gabler?
I was going to say the same thing that Director Neville said, so I will keep my comments short. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you do. There's so many people in this room that have been part of the Ed Fund throughout the years. I think, like Director Neville said, there's a lot of people that are impacted by the work of the Ed Fund, but don't always know that it's the Ed Fund's dollars at work. Like the Fraser therapist, I hear that all the time from families that say that made a huge difference in our family's life. And so I too urge people to consider contributing to the work that the Ed Fund does, because I think more than people realize, their children and their community is impacted by the phenomenal work that you're doing. And the gap that people talk about all the time, this is something we can do. There's so much that we can't do to close that gap because our hands are tied in terms of how we can fill that, and the Ed Fund is one of those ways that we can do it. So I also was going to say that if there's people listening that are interested in becoming board members, what would be the best way for them to go about learning about that?
I would say reach out to me. If you go on our website, which I believe they can see the slides. Can they not see the slides when we're presenting? If you go on our website, you can find my email and just reach out directly to me.
I was just going to say real quick, I'm also going to say thank you for all the hard work. And something you said, Karen, reminded me of years ago. I said, I think it would be amazing for parents to see if we took a snapshot inside one of our schools and we just magically erased things that the Ed Fund had been a part of giving us, that what our classrooms and our schools look like without that versus what it looks like with what the Ed Fund has done. It would be very shocking for people to see how much the Ed Fund impacts our schools in ways that we just take for granted. So thank you for all your hard work and for this presentation.
Director Aram?
I just wanted to say thank you again for all the work you've been doing, and then also kind of, raising money and changing the vision of the Ed Fund over the last few years and kind of focusing things like that has been really impressive. And the amount of money that you're bringing in now is, compared to when I was on the board and whatnot, knowing where we're at, I'm super impressed with all the work you've done in keeping it relevant for the schools. I mean, it's obviously relevant all the time, but it was a struggle, right? And so to keep that focus and keeping it in front of people in a way that resonates with them is really cool. So thank you.
Thank you for coming here tonight, and I just want to note that the reason you're here presenting tonight is because of how important you are to our district and to everything that you do for our students and our staff. And you're one of, I think, 2 official partners that we have from a fundraising perspective, and as has all of the other board members have said, truly impact all of our students in small ways and large. In many different ways. And I would, as everyone else has, but I will again encourage people to consider donating if they are able to, because it will impact your student and it impacts our district. I always like to say we are an outstanding district, and this is our ability to take it up a notch, to offer things like the Space Flight program, to offer them mental health support, to be one of the leaders in literacy. It's because of you guys. And I just can't stress the importance enough of having a partner like you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We will now vote to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. We're now going to move on to our discussion items. Because we've moved two discussion items off of our agenda, as was stated at the beginning of the meeting, our first discussion item is the pre-K to 12 comprehensive literacy plan update. And I would like to welcome Director of Teaching and Learning, Jody D. St. Hubert, and I would like to ask you to introduce everyone else at the table.
Absolutely. Good evening, Chair Allenberg, Dr. Stanley, members of the board, colleagues and community members. We are excited to have a team here tonight to give an update on our early learning through 12 comprehensive literacy plan. Our work is broad and it's moving and it's having a great impact on students. We have 6 priority goal areas, and we passed our early learning through 5 comprehensive literacy plan in the spring of 2021, and last spring passed the 6 through 12. So it's been exciting to see how the work is moving forward. I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Director Bethany Van Osdell. She's excited and wanting to introduce this fabulous team here as they've collaborated deeply together on the work and the presentation for tonight. So I will turn it over and sit back.
Thank you, Jody. Well, thank you very much for inviting us to share on behalf of our amazing leaders, coaches, staff members that are implementing this comprehensive literacy plan. We trust that you've read through the board report and can see how the work that began K-5 now expands to middle and high school. We're committed to ensuring that our students receive evidence-based instruction regardless of their age, implementing the most current research around structured literacy at all ages, stages, and levels. To illustrate this, I've brought this amazing team with whom I get to work. And I just, before I introduce them, want to say that the work we're going to share and that they're going to speak about, we intentionally planned this, but we didn't know that the Ed Fund was going to present before us. And so I couldn't kick this off without saying again how grateful we are that so much of their work has allowed us to do this work. So I just want to say thank you to them as well. So I have Carrie Duncan. She's a literacy coach here in elementary. So she is coaching at Concord Highlands in Creek Valley, and she's in her 4th year now of coaching. And then Sandra Harley is going to also speak tonight, and she is a literacy coach at Countryside, Cornelia, and Normandale. She's also in her 4th year. And then Sarah Burgess here is from the high school, and she's an ELA teacher and a literacy intervention specialist. And so we've really intentionally planned some stories to share that highlight this work in the trenches, what it really looks like on the day-to-day basis. And so you're going to hear these stories that really highlight the CLP in terms of the professional development that's being offered, the data that we're using, and the resources also that are coming into play. And again, just being mindful of that thread of, regardless of the age, stage, or level, we're committed to making sure that our students receive the best. And so with that, I'm going to, one really quick thing, we're really trying to be concise and quick in our presentation, and so we have shared all of the slides with you. You have those. The public has access to them, but we're going to be skipping some, and so you're going to hear us say next slide, next slide, next slide a bit more, because we also didn't know that the clicker wouldn't be working, and so just know that we're intentionally trying to streamline our presentation for that. Oh, well then we won't have to say that all the time.
Perfect, thank you. All right, I'm now going to pass to Carrie Duncan, and she can begin sharing.
I think I have the most slides to go ahead, so I'm glad the clicker is working. Okay, so I'm going to touch base on our PLC work this year. Sandy and I have been working really hard to make sure that we are giving all schools the same type of information. So we're trying to be consistent across all elementary schools. And so I just want to highlight that a little bit. And so in September, what we did is we took our FastBridge data and we looked at our screening to intervention report and we identified our needs. And not only this year did we identify our needs, we did diagnostics to even dive deeper into the very specific needs that these students have and then how are we going to respond. And so that's the work we did in September. And we've also set up our progress monitoring. So intervention started around the 26th of September. So we are ready, putting those in place and targeting our instruction at a really detailed level. That happened, as well as I think this is new work this year where we have I can statements that align with our reading commitments. And Sandy and I know that that can be a bit overwhelming when they look at all of their I can statements. So we divided them up into months. And so this month, September, we're working and focusing on the sound wall, and Sandy will speak to that shortly. We also are working with Aspire in grades 4 and 5, and they also have I can statements. And so the I can statements, the letters and Aspire work is really deepening our Tier 1 instruction. So we have Tier 1 and Tier 2 going on in our general education classrooms, and the teachers are doing amazing work, and we're just so proud of what they're doing this year and how they are, I guess, really responding to embedding all of the letters in Aspire work and targeting instruction. So I'm gonna keep forwarding. There we go.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Make sure they can hear me. So hello and good evening. I'm going to share a little bit around the sound walls. And so just happy to share tonight. And we are having a lot of really powerful and impactful conversations in our PLCs, kindergarten, first and second, particularly around how to use the sound wall. And so these conversations, they are supporting teachers as they're making that transition from the typical word wall to the sound wall. Okay, so that's 26 letters versus the 44 phonemes. So it is a significant shift in practice. Okay, and so I'm just gonna go back. And so what is the sound wall? The sound wall is, it's an instructional tool, and it's used to support students in the development of a sound system. And so by explicitly teaching the 44 phonemes, making sure that we're making those connections from the phonemes to the graphemes, that relationships allow students to then blend, segment, ultimately being able to lift those words off the page and start decoding. I think last, I'm just gonna kind of go through some of these slides. You'll see like where sound walls are living, and like Bethany said, I know that you've previewed these already. Why the sound wall? There's some research, and then how the sound wall is being used. Teachers are at different places instructionally, so it's been talked, like I said, it's really kind of dominating our PLC conversations right now. Oops, and let me go back one. And then last, I just want to emphasize that this is Letters living in Edina classrooms. This is Aspire living in Edina classrooms, and we are committed to making sure we are building a strong sound system for our students. So, thank you.
I'm going to take a minute and just speak to middle school. Sandra just mentioned around the professional learning that's so important and critical with letters, and we now have that with Aspire. And so Aspire is the intermediate and secondary version. It's just the extension. It's from the same research as letters. It's from the same company, Lexia. And so we're just now implementing that at the middle schools. And so we have about, I believe, 8 teachers that are going to begin this this semester, and then all teachers will begin for sure by February. And so with that timeline, they're going to be engaging in the modules, and I trust that you had a chance to read through these, but just again, that through line of structured literacy professional learning for our teachers, pre-K-9 has just been critical for us to have, again, at any age or stage or level. We have these ensuring that they're receiving this professional learning, and it's not just living. We always talk about like the professional learning that's being offered is amazing and wonderful, and our teachers are growing. We know that. They're loving it. It's amazing. But we want to make sure it lands on kids. And so providing collaboration time for teachers is really important for us to be intentional about giving them time to plan how to use this, and I look at data to assess if it's working. And so this was just an example, again, in your board packet, you were able to see this, of some of the courses, and I wanted to share that how important it is that you take a look at that to see the rigor and the connection to all of the structured literacy that's occurring in letters. This is just one set of the course modules. There's 2 others, 28 total. This is an example of each course that our middle school teachers now, actually it'll be grades 4 through 8 that'll be engaging in this. There is a bridge to application with every module, and so they walk away. This is just one example of a simple tool that they can take and use and apply in their classrooms right away. The feedback you can see from teachers has been really, really wonderful when it comes to them asking if they can continue to do more. That's always really good evidence that something's valuable. And I will pass to Sarah to speak about how this looks at the high school.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. So I was asked to talk about FastBridge and literacy intervention at the high school. We are in our 2nd year of administering the FastBridge reading to 9th graders, and we're in our 1st year of administering it to 10th graders. And you can see from the slide that we are pretty close to that 80% proficiency, which is really exciting. But what's been so helpful in looking at the FastBridge data is that we can see in the screening to intervention tool that the common need in that tier 1 instruction is an emphasis on vocabulary. So when we get to the level of a CT meeting, what we're starting to have deeper conversations about in terms of that core instruction is how do we implement best practice vocabulary strategies for all students. But then, of course, we also want to provide interventions for our striving readers. This year we have 4 sections of a college reading readiness course. What's new to the course this year is that it is not just reading skills, it is also a bridge to the English 9 class. Those students were identified last spring from 8th grade data, but after our screening through the fall window, we were actually able to reach out to more families. And I got an additional 5 students in the classroom out of 10 families that we reached out to just in the last 2 weeks. And we did that with the intention of not upending student schedules. I mean, it's October. So we tried to target students who we knew could slide into the course. What does a day look like in our college reading readiness class? I try to spend 50% of my time on reading skills and 50% of the time bridging to English 9. So in terms of reading skills, it's anything from looking at current events articles, always practicing fluency, because that's another intervention that has come out of FastBridge. So on a daily basis, students are reading out loud to each other. We do phonics practice through word games. That's pretty fun. And then, of course, we are bridging to English 9. So that vocabulary piece is so important. The vocabulary that is being identified in the 9th grade English class, we can review and go over further in the CRR program. And then what's next is that we have all of this data now coming out of the 10th grade. And what we'll be doing is meeting with the 10th grade CT and trying to help them pull their students who are at, or look at the data for the students who are some risk and high risk, and how we can best support them. That one idea that we have is looking at flex time and trying to pull students maybe for a 6-week period where we're practicing some of those same skills from the actual course during that flex block. And I think that's it.
That's great, thank you.
Sure.
Before we pause for questions, I just have to say these 3 are amazing, and I am so lucky I get to work alongside of them. They live our mission and vision every day and night, because I get emails from them at night and in the morning. And I just can't tell you enough how inspiring it is to work with educators like this, and it really does go across the system. The teachers are doing amazing things, but these 3 leaders are pretty outstanding. So what questions do you have?
Dr. Shaw?
Thank you for the presentation. I was really excited. We got to see a lot of this work in person over at Cornelia. And so Sandy, thank you for showing us that with our legislators. Was it last week or the week before? It was amazing to see it in practice, so thank you. I do have some questions about the high school. I'm hoping you can kind of help me. Can you remind me, will the 9th graders and I guess 10th graders also be tested again in the spring? Is that, so they're tested more than once?
We're going to screen them in the winter. We already have dates set.
Okay.
For the winter window, the winter window and the spring window.
Okay. And how do students know where they're at? How is that information shared with students and families?
That's a great question. I think that's a process that we probably need to work on at the high school. Students were told when they were being screened for FastBridge that typically, this is what the window is. I think the window just closed. It was early October, and that a week after that their reports would be uploaded to the portal. So right now they at least know they can access the data there. In terms of how do you look at it in the same way that I might view my own kids' data, right, at the elementary school, I think that's a process we could talk about further.
So is that, Bethany, I guess, is there a plan to put communication in place for families to understand the results of that data?
We've been working really hard on that plan, actually, and so what we landed at, we've been working with principals. First, I just want to say to Sarah's point, too, it's really important that the educators have a chance to understand the data and really, before we move into that next step of involving in the students in a certain way to know how to do that. And so given that it was brand new last year, I think we're positioned now to start those conversations. But in elementary, we started with looking through the reports and trying to figure out exactly what we should do. And we landed on posting the scores online with some communication from Greg, and then layered with the communication from the principals, because we know that we tended to read that communication more often. And so then also on the portal, when parents log in, there are some resources for them to be able to understand, there are nice graphs there, but then also how to help at home. Right, so that's where we are at this point. So we'll constantly be collecting feedback and improving that, but that's where we are right now.
Okay, so that said, with that 149 students of 9th graders this fall that did not meet benchmark, what's being done to address those needs, and how are families and parents being brought on to that? So they understand what's happening, they understand their student maybe having a different experience in their LA class than other students. How are we communicating that and helping those 149 students?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think
I'll
let Sarah speak to it a little bit too, but I think on our end, that's when we look at the communication of FastBridge, we know that it's new and we know that's ever evolving. And so that's something that we definitely need to look at and think more about. We know that the teachers are embracing it and they're finding value in that. And now we just need to figure out how to bridge that. I don't know if you want to speak more towards how it's being shared.
Sure. I also would say one important piece of that communication is also within those 9th grade teams. So even if we don't have the entire process laid out for what you're suggesting with the parents, what I do know is that we have taken all of the students, all those 149, identified in graphs who's at some risk, who's at high risk, talking about those students with their 9th grade teams. That's the English teacher, the government teacher, the physical earth science teacher. So that that core team has an idea of there are needs that we should all look out for, right? Because I don't have the room, right, in those 4 classes to help everybody, but there's a heightened awareness then at the teaming level that these students need more support. And I know those conversations are happening at parent-teacher conferences, when parents came in last week, and they're having those conversations with the English teachers. To the point also of when we were identifying more students, again, it wasn't a perfect process, and we're currently working on protocols. What does it mean to exit the class? What does it mean to add more students to the class? What benchmarks do we need to meet? Are they just FastBridge? Are they fluency protocol benchmarks? Are they what your grade is in the 9th grade English class? We're working on that, but it was really rewarding to reach out to families of students that I knew could slide into the class and have those conversations. And out of the 10, 5 came in, but the other 5, we also had really good discussions about their student and their learning profile and what it meant to be a striving reader in the 9th grade.
Okay. And I have one more question. I promise it's my last one. And remind me, Bethany, do you feel like, or does the team at the high school feel like now that we are gathering that data, it's kind of upon us, I would think, to action on it? Do you feel as if there are resources? So if I'm a teacher and I just got my list and I have 10 students in my class who are not proficient, I am given the resources that I need to address that so that I have more than just that piece of data, but I actually have ways to action it for the better of the student versus collecting data without an action behind it.
That's a really good question, and one teachers always have, right? So yes, we do right now. We have Fast Bridge interventions, and we have Aspire resources that bridge to application. That's what we have now. Do we need more? Yes. And so what we're looking at is we're in curriculum review for Tier 1, and then we're also looking at that list that MDE will put out for elementary, but we know for alignment, we want to make sure, and we want to see what kind of comes out on that in January. And so we're looking at a curriculum review for not just Tier 1 resources, but also Tier 2 resources. We know there's a need. So yes, we have things, and we always can do better.
Okay, and I promised that was my last one, but I had one more. I'm just gonna say, I would urge you to really think intentionally about bringing parents along in this journey, maybe sooner than without having everything perfect, because I think as a parent who didn't get brought on early enough, it makes a big difference, right? If I knew what I didn't know at that point, things could be changed. So I would encourage you to bring families into these conversations, even if we don't have it down pat perfect. I think it's important that we bring families into the conversation sooner rather than later.
That's a great point. Thank you very much. And one of our 6 goals, so that's great. Thank you.
Dr. Gabler?
No, you're good. Thank you for this report. It's really exciting to see. My questions are probably more secondary. When it maybe was a little bit like Director Shaw was talking about too, like when we have, now that we're getting better at identifying these students, and I'm thinking especially secondary when they're having that team approach, has there been discussion, and I wouldn't expect it to be happening this early in the process, but discussion about really watching these students as they, if you're identified in 6th grade, and we know that you're a struggling reader, looking at that database of students that we have in 6th grade and kind of digging in a little bit and saying, what are we looking at here? Is this a student that would benefit from some AVID services? Do we have some potential, maybe some undiagnosed dyslexia? Some of that stuff that instruction might fit, but some of it might be there's other things where we can pull in other resources to say, we have a pocket of kids who really could benefit from, if they're struggling in reading, sometimes that shows up in other classes as well. And so I loved how you said, we're talking as a 9th grade team and everybody's aware. And then the resource piece of, so then how do we make sure that each and every one of those kids that you have or that we've identified as not proficient, we can look for trends within that group and say, how can we pour into those kids what they might need, which maybe it's instruction, but maybe it's something else. So that was more of a comment. My question, Sarah, have you, is there, as you kind of bridge them to 9th grade, as you're working in the literacy and the skills, can you talk to a little bit about how you're weaving in like writing with that process?
Yes, but I would say the focus has really been more on the reading. So I think when the board change occurred for the class last winter, the courses I had taught it for 2 years prior was very much an isolated reading skills course. And so this year, what's different is that bridge to English 9. I'm still heavily focusing on the reading piece. That isn't to say we haven't looked at writing. For sure, when they were writing CERs, their claim evidence reasoning in 9th grade, I was bringing in models from pieces that we read together so we could identify those. Here's the component of what a good CER looks like. Here's how you write a claim. Here's how you pick evidence, all those fundamentals. But we weren't necessarily taking it to the writing piece because of the nature of the title of the course.
No, that makes sense. And I hope that your position in this class evolves as we bring on this comprehensive literacy plan, pre-K through 12. So by the time 2 years from now, you're seeing kids that maybe got some of that intervention earlier, so you maybe have less students or different needs of students. So thank you.
In the reading data, we are already seeing that with fewer needs at 6th grade than at 7th and 8th. So we're already seeing that it's a trickle up, the trickle up effect, I guess. So that's exciting. And I just wanted to comment on the writing piece too. With our Tier 1 curriculum review working, Sarah sits on that team also. And so thinking about the opportunities that are in Tier 1 and then how does that live out in Tier 2 will be really important for that alignment.
Right, and then one last comment, the longitudinal piece of these kids, like, do we see them exit permanently, or are they kind of in and out and in and out? It would be kind of interesting to watch, so.
Yeah,
okay.
and the longer that we are able to collect this data, the more we can do that, and we certainly will. That's really important information. It's good.
Any other board members? Great, thank you so much for your update.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
Next up, we have our continuous school improvement plan process with Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Randy Smazel, and our Concord Elementary Principal, Paul Domer. I noticed you smartly entered right before your discussion instead of staying the entire evening.
Catch up on some. Yes. I just want to say last year I was substitute principaling at Concord, and one of the students said, "Why do you look like Mr. Domer?" Clearly, it's our clothes shopping experiences here.
I did have a student at lunch today ask me when I've been bald before this. So, yeah.
Well, good evening, Superintendent Stanley, Chair Allenberg, school board members, community members, and staff. We are excited to just quickly review tonight with you our process around continuous school improvement planning. We've made some changes to the process that we'll review with you. I want to show just very quickly that the work we do in continuous school improvement planning aligns with the mission, the vision, strategic initiatives. We'll give you an overview of the process, review a sample goal and action plan, and how we plan on monitoring those site plans. I've asked Principal Domer to join us here this evening to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing at Concord, just so you get a feel of how these plans play out at the school level. So our mission and vision, it's all about alignment, and if we're truly going to meet that vision, which we will, these continuous school improvement plans are our pathway. They are a route to help make that happen at the school level. There are several slides listed here describing the different strategic initiatives from strategies A, B, C, D, and E that apply to the continuous school improvement planning process, or rather how the continuous school improvement planning process helps us meet those initiatives so that they transcend through the school system. But I will jump ahead, since you've had these, to the definition of a school improvement planning process, just so we're all starting with this on the same page. And that is that it is a detailed method for improving academic, social, emotional, and culture and climate outcomes in a school setting. And that word continuous is something we added upon Dr. Stanley's arrival to really be focused on being responsive and adaptive to what's working and not working. And these are plans that are developed and drafted, but certainly can and do change as the year continues on. The plans also represent a way for us to achieve those district data metrics goals, because our continuous school improvement plans and our CDIPs, our continuous department improvement plans, are then the subset of unpacking those goals and writing action plans that are going to help meet those district data metric goals. So site and department goals align to those. And then professional learning community goals or teacher teams goals align to those site goals. And then student learning goals are those set by individual teachers in our alternative compensation model, our alt-comp model. So that diagram is intended to give you a picture of the flow of the alignment work that we're doing in the district. Inside of a site plan, we have 4 components. We have SMART goals. SMART are specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. Action plans, that's what we actually do. The key indicators of progress, those things tell us, are we on the trajectory to hit those goals, and how do we know that? And then the metrics of performance, how we plan to measure our success as it relates to those goals. So how do we create that plan at the site level? Well, our teams take a look at, of course, the previous work from the year before. They also then take a look at data metrics and goals at both the district and the site level. They do analysis of root cause for persistent barriers to outcomes, and part of that work is really generating hypotheses about what are the barriers and how could we break through those barriers. And we often learn that the longer and deeper that list gets, the more closely we get to what those true barriers are. So we do some work around that. They draft their school improvement plan, they solicit feedback around that plan, and they continue to adapt and refine that plan. Now I have a quiz question for you, and the quiz question is, which is a more culturally competent approach? A, the continuous school improvement plan is created primarily by the building leader, or B, the continuous school improvement plan is collaboratively created with staff, students, and families and adopted by every staff member. I could, but it is 9:20. Director Gabler, so I'm not going to. I loved your answer of B, and B is the correct answer. It's the answer that the principals and our leadership team, in fact, designed as what they believed would be a more culturally competent approach to continuous school improvement. The question is, if you're going to have all of that involvement, how do you manage all that data and all that information and really make it meaningful and timely so that it can truly impact the plan that you are putting together for your school? Well, one of our answers was to really leverage the tool Thought Exchange. Thought Exchange, as you know, has been used in the district for a while. It allows for surveys and allows for open-ended questions. So all of our sites produced a Thought Exchange survey for their staff, their students, and for their parents and guardians. And as part of that thought exchange, there's an open-ended question. So we're just going to review a little bit of the data that was provided to Mr. Domer from his staff at Concord, from some of his students at Concord, from some of his parents and guardians at Concord, that helps inform to what degree do we feel like this Concord plan is on track for aligning to the vision and meeting the goals of what people feel will lead to student success. So the first set of responses, a little bit hard to read on your screen. You have it more clearly in the slide deck and in the handout. But these are staff responses. And so one of the first questions that was used, and not all of the same questions were used across all the schools. They had some autonomy in the types of questions they wanted to ask, but some of these were frequently asked, like this question. I believe the improvement plan is connected to the district vision. Interesting to find out what our staff think about that. Are we on the same track as the district vision in their perception? In this case, 91% of the Concord staff said agree or strongly agree that our plans are aligned to the vision. And again, it's important to collect that information about the plans. For the next question, we asked, or Mr. Domer asked, I feel that the school's goals align with what I believe is important for student success. So again, just gathering that data about their personal beliefs to really assess that level of buy-in. 88% of the staff saying this aligns with my core beliefs about what we should be doing in this school. Another question, the action plans of our CSIP seem doable to roll them out one at a time. So it's important to also assess, did I click that? There we go. It's important to also assess to what degree do staff feel prepared to be able to deliver on those plans. So again, 77% said agree, strongly agree. But here's the opportunity to dig in a little bit, because you notice there are some in disagree and there are some in unsure. And that's that opportunity to learn from the staff who don't feel as prepared to deliver on that action plan and do some of that preparation work, do some of that support. And Mr. Domer, we can tag team at any point in time, so you just jump in when you want to jump in here. No,
Well, I can
Yes.
speak to that too. My new phrase for professional learning, Dr. Stan knows this, is chunk and chew. So we often overfeed our teachers with new learning, new initiatives, and when you have too many goals, which I know you all know, you really have none because you don't have the capacity and the time to do that. So we're really careful with communicating that we're going to pick one little thing at a time and we're going to do it well. And then once that's like in place, then we'll go to the next one. And it's okay, because we have a long list of brainstormed action plans for the year. We likely won't get through all of them, but if we do them well, they're going to stick. And that's what we're finding with our data, is that when we do that and do it well, it sticks.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the next response, which is about, do I feel welcome in our school? So it's really an assessment aimed at culture and climate for the staff in particular. That was one of their 3 types of goals: numeracy, literacy, and culture and climate. I forgot to say that at the beginning. 93% agree or strongly agree. I feel welcome in this school. Very high rating. And then we move on to collecting some data from student responses. So a couple of hundred students, grades 3, 4, 5?
4 and 5.
Grades 4 and 5, thank you. Giving their feedback about, does the work of the adults transcend to my experience as a student in this school? That's important for us to understand because we want to know that it is having the impact that is desired from the plan. My overall learning experience at the school has been positive. 86% are saying agree, strongly agree. But again, there are some that aren't sure about that, so opportunity for improvement still lies in there. The next one, the school provides me with the support that I need in reading. So as a developing reader, did I feel like I'm getting that support, as an individual student? Again, 88% of the students saying agree, strongly agree. A couple of students not feeling as supported in that. One of the things that's really important in success in mathematics is the mindset that a student brings to mathematics. And we know from the literature that growing and advancing mindset around mathematics correlates with mathematics success. So this question takes a look at how confident are you in your math skills, which will provide insights to our teachers about where their confidence levels are across the 4th and 5th grade class. Then let's move on to a couple of parent and guardian responses. My children's overall learning experiences at the school has been positive, so does that plan from the adults in the school transcend to the parents and their experience? We want to know what their experience has been like. 91% strongly agree and agree. The school supports my child's social emotional needs, 81%. 81% strongly agree and agree. And then now we're on to the next fun part, which is, let me go back, I'm clicking too fast. The open-ended question, and in this case, the thought exchange question was, what are your best ideas for improving our school? So Mr. Doman, I don't know if you want to speak to this a little bit, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, this is really interesting on all the open-ended questions, whether it was students or parents or staff. There's an AI component, which is super helpful because there's probably 60 pages worth of comments that you can't always, go through in real detail. But it showed that there's really a high amount of variability in the ideas, which I think is good, right? You get that. A lot of the ideas don't necessarily match. Kids want more recess and, better lunch and those things that, we probably is not going to relate directly to some of this stuff, but it's good to know what they're thinking about. But in general, parents want to make sure that students are getting the help that they need. And students are asking, can we please revisit difficult math concepts? It's really interesting because on the math phase, or on the math slide there, where it asks their confidence in it, is a little bit lower in math than it was for reading. Although our math MCA scores were at 82%, which is really high. So that's really interesting, but it is an advanced curriculum. I would say it's, by the time they get out of 5th grade, they're a year ahead of state standards. But it's good to know because it is a rigorous program. A lot of students want to read more independently, which I think is really positive, right? That's a great thing. And then social emotional connections, more connecting with others. They brought up things like a buddy bench, you know, being able to have more connections with each other. Parents really brought that up too. They would love to see buddy classrooms back. We did a lot of that before COVID, and then things just, you kind of forget what you had sometimes. And so older grades meeting with other grades. So these are things we've talked about with our leadership team. And then we added them into our CSIP plan after we went through everything. And then in our last leadership meeting, we are now going through and we're kind of prioritizing all of our action steps. What are we going to tackle first? What's our biggest lever in literacy? And then we're going to start digging in math, probably mid-year. And then Mark DeYoung, the great Mark DeYoung, assistant principal, he is working with a committee on the social emotional aspects of this, and we're doing a lot of great stuff that I know other schools are ahead of us on with Character Strong, and then using a lot of the lessons for Panorama around our 2 goal areas, which are students identifying difficult emotions and you know, being able to process those and manage those.
Thank you, Paul. Just show you a couple more slides, and then we'll turn it back for questions. So what's interesting about this slide is just a capture of who participated. So the bottom one says Concord Elementary staff. This was the thought exchange given to staff. The numbers on the right say 50 adults participated, so 50 teachers participated. They generated 41 best ideas or thoughts, and then they rated those different thoughts. So the 50 people rated the 41 thoughts for a total of 899 ratings. So that's the interactive component of it, just reviewing and thinking about what if other people thought about in terms of how to improve our school. And then if you jump on the one up on top, 375 parents, guardians, and students jumped into this conversation, generating 327 of their best ideas and almost 9,000 interactions in those ideas. So there's incredible power in opening up the conversation across the community through tools like this. And as Mr. Domer mentioned, one of the levers that the tool has is to do some summation of the themes and the frequency counts using some powerful technology. But we know that we also have other schools participating in using the same tool. And so I'm going to show you some amazing stats. So if we total up all the other schools to date this year, we have, there we go, about 1,800 people that have participated in school improvement conversations via thought exchange. And those 1,800 people generated 1,500 plus of their best thoughts or ideas about how to improve our community schools. And each of those thoughts was rated about 25 times, which created over 39,000 interactions with our staff, our students, and our community. What a powerful way to enrich the conversation about how to make our schools better tomorrow than they were today. It is all about getting the system working at a higher level, which is about people, and it's all about alignment and getting all of our people power in Edina pulling in the same direction. Tools like this help us identify where we have strengths, where we have commonality, and where we have things to work on. And so we are super excited to share a little glimpse of some of that work that's happening in our schools with a little bit of Mr. Domer's stories and some of these slides. And with that, we will turn it back to our school board with questions.
Thank you both very much. Board members, are there questions? Oh, great.
It's amazing.
Wow, yeah. I have 2 questions, so don't get too jumpy getting out of your chair. I love the engagement with the staff, the community, and students. It's just amazing. Question I have is, if we have parents, students that have language barriers, technology barriers, are we reaching out to them to get their feedback into our school improvement plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first part of that I'll share is that it has a language translator built into it, so people are immediately able to select the language of their choice, and then everything is translated. They complete it, and then it's translated back. So in terms of a language barrier, there's some power in that. I would say part of the work we're trying to do in the building of a CPSS continuum of making our plans more culturally proficient means that we're on a journey. We are, I would say we've landed in the category of culturally competent. I think the next step is to get to culturally proficient in terms of how we gather feedback, which means specific data that can be disaggregated that now tells us which specific stakeholders have we heard from and which haven't we heard from, and that can certainly be our next step. We took a good jump this year, but we have more work to do.
That's great. That was one thing I was thinking is are we hearing from, who are we not hearing from? And it's an excellent segue to my next question, which is I love how the data is flowing from high level down to teacher level to student learning goals. I was wondering how our World's Best Workforce goals and achievement and integration goals, a lot of those are also in our data metrics plan, but there are some that aren't. Are those also integrated in school improvement plans? And if not, are there plans to make sure that we aren't excluding any of our district-wide achievement and integration goals?
Yeah, that graphic, I could probably broaden the language on that. That graphic represents district level goal setting in terms of process, but it would be maybe good to be a little more inclusive of some of that language.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all. Thank you both. Thank you for coming tonight, Principal Domer. Yes. We're now going to move on to our policy review, and I'll turn it over to Director Neville.
Thank you, Chair Allenberg. We have 4 policies up for discussion this evening. And the first one that we're going to talk about is policy 624. So Dr. Smazel, if I could invite you to return. We're just going to roll right forward. These are online learning options. And Dr. Smazel, if you could please give us just an overview of the updates in this policy.
Sure, thank you. For this policy, we made a few updates. We added a little bit of language, some additional description to the purpose to deepen the description of that. We wanted to make sure that people are clear that online learning courses and opportunities are still facilitated by a classroom teacher. So we know that that's clear in the policy. We did say that students can add an online learning course at no cost as long as that fits in with their current schedule of earning the 14 credits. If that goes over and above that, then there is a cost associated with that. We also indicated in the update that the district will provide a multilingual learner support and support for students receiving specialized education services. We believe that Appendix 1 is no longer relevant. That was used early on in the program, but it's something that we could eliminate at this time. And then we had some language cleanup for consistency purposes in the policy.
Thank you. We did discuss all of these in our policy committee. Do any board members have questions that they'd like to ask? Yes, Janie.
I just have a point of clarification. So this policy is for online learning programs outside of Edina? That's how I was reading this. Is this supposed to also encompass Edina Virtual Pathway?
This is for online learning options outside of Edina.
Okay, so this would be like our Northern Star or Tonka Online or something like that. Okay, I just wanted to be clear that which one, what we were talking about, because all of a sudden I got confused.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Smussel. So if I could invite Director Woodard to join us, we'll talk about policies 708 and 713. 708 is our expense reimbursement policy. 713 is about student transportation. Welcome, Mert.
Good evening, Director Neville, members of the school board. So policy 708 regarding employee expense reimbursements. This policy was reviewed and updated last August of 2022. There are no substantive changes that have been discussed. The only change is to remove the appendix that refers to the paper form of submitting for expenditures. We're moving to an electronic system, and so we thought we would update that at this time.
Thank you. Any questions about reimbursement? Fantastic, thank you. And 713, student transportation.
Yeah, the 2023 legislative session brought forward new legislation requiring school districts to educate kindergarten through third grade students on active transportation safety, so pedestrian training, bicycle safety, things of that nature. And so we updated our policy to reflect those changes, as well as remove some erroneous references to other safety protocols throughout the appendices.
Any questions on transportation? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Neville and the Policy Committee. Before we move on to our action items, Board Policy 203 requires us to end our board meetings by 10 o'clock. I think that might be a tall order, and I don't want us to rush through our action items in order to meet that time frame. So I would like to make a motion to extend our board meeting to 10:30 p.m. Is there a motion?
Second.
Wait, I need a first.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a
Second.
second? All those in favor of extending our board meeting until 10:30, say aye.
Aye.
The motion has passed, and we will extend our board meeting, hopefully not till 10:30, but it gives us till 10:30. Thank you. Sorry, everybody over on the right. Moving on to our action items, do I have a motion to approve the administrative recommendation for strategic plan revisions?
So moved.
Second.
Outstanding. I believe this is you, Dr. Stanley.
It is. So recommendations and an overview of suggestions and recommendations were brought to the first to a work session and then for discussion at the last regular board meeting. And before you have the recommendations for the minor changes toward the strategic plan.
Does anyone have any comments on this? And just one point of clarification, and that there are notes in here, but for anyone that doesn't actually read all the detailed notes in our board book, this does call for an extension of our strategic plan to make it a 10-year plan instead of a 7-year plan. There was a lot of stakeholder input into making this change, including many community stakeholders, the board itself, parents, teachers. So this, a lot of this had to do with the timing of the rolling out of our strategic plan, which was, I believe, the same month that COVID hit. But it's also a very, very robust strategic plan. And I believe Principal Domer spoke about the fact that we want to make sure we're doing stuff well, not quickly. And so we are still on track with all of the important items in our strategic plan. And I appreciate Dr. Stanley and your team making this recommendation to ensure that we are able to get everything done well for our community. So thank you. Oh, now we have to vote. We will now vote to approve the administrative recommendations for the strategic plan revisions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries and the strategic plan revisions are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 superintendent goals?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Stanley?
Again, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to bring these for discussion. Originally in August, received some feedback, provided some clarity on goals specifically related to staff, culture, and climate, and their mental health and wellness. Updated those goals, and I presented those last month, and now I'm bringing them before you for final approval.
Questions or comments from board members? All those in favor of approving the 2023-2024 superintendent goals say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes and the 2023-2024 superintendent goals are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 board goals?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
These were done in conjunction with the superintendent goals, and they took into consideration many different data points, but they are very detailed if people in the community would like to take a look at them, and they align with all the strategies in our strategic plan in order to support the work that the district is doing and to support the governance work that we're doing from a board perspective. Do any board members have any comments that they would like to make?
I do.
Yes.
I am just, this is great. We've seen this looks phenomenal. And I don't know how important this is, but we only have one area where we have in progress, but we actually have more items on this that are in
Yes,
progress.
for
So
sure.
I didn't want anyone looking at this to say like, we haven't made more progress than we have, because there's.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And we could even post an updated one potentially at the next board meeting and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, and last year, we posted a mid-year report out, so maybe we could push it and do it, the mid-year report.
Anything else?
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Chair Allenberg and Vice Chair Green for all their work on this plan and this document. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. All those in favor of approving the 2023-2024 board goals, say aye.
Aye.
The goals are approved. We are now going to move on to the policies. Do I have a motion to approve policies 211, 408, 418, 419, 424, 506, 509, 510, 524, 628, and 634?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll turn it over to Director Neville.
Thank you. I just want to make a general note regarding this policy, these policies and all policies that we discussed at the board meeting. It is close to 10 o'clock. The sleep is on in my computer, and I can tell. In some of these policies, we're updating appendices as well as the body of the policy. And when that is the case, many of these appendices are also connected with other policies. So those updates will follow with the other policies to which they're connected. Other than that, there are no changes to these policies since we discussed them at the last board meeting. We do have some additional information on policy 509 that was provided by Dr. Smazel. If it's all right, Dr. Smazel, would you like to share the results regarding the question on transfers, or I can just share the summary? Okay. There was a question regarding the frequency with which students may transfer from a choice program into a neighborhood school and how much impact that may or may not have. And so here are the results that Dr. Smazel has researched. There were 3 students who transferred out of Normandale to their home school last year and 4 the previous year. There weren't any transfers out of Highlands last year and 4 out of Highlands in 21-22. And there were 3 transfers in from private schools last year and 20 the previous year district-wide. And that we were coming out of COVID, so that's just a different type of year. So not a concern in any of these cases on class size.
Great, I appreciate that information.
Yeah. And are there any other questions before we approve any of these policies?
Okay, we will now vote to approve policies 211, 408, 418, 419, 424, 506, 509, 510, 524, 628, 634. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All of those policies are approved. We are now going to move on to board leadership and committee updates. Before I turn it over to Dr. Stanley, does anyone on the board have a committee update? Dr. Stanley.
Well, I just have a couple of updates, and really they are commendations, shout outs. So a couple of years ago, or maybe it was just last year, we formed it is almost 10 o'clock. Career Technical Education Advisory Committee, and actually Dr. Emery Leland is the one who's really been working closely with that. Of course, Jody and Randy have been involved in that as well. And Shannon Seaver, one of our teachers at the high school, is just doing such an outstanding job in representing Edina Public Schools on so many levels in this area. And I am just really pleased to announce that she was chosen as the 2023 Techne Educator of the Year. So this announcement went to the Career and Technical Education Advisory Committee members. It says, greetings, Edina Public Schools Career and Technical Education Advisory Committee members. We are so thrilled to announce that our very own Shannon Seaver, work-based learning coordinator and CTE department co-lead at Edina High School, has won the 2023 Techne Educator of the Year award. An award like this does not happen without passion, dedication, and hours of work in class and out of class. We want to thank Shannon for her leadership and commitment to students and all things STEAM. Congratulations, Shannon. It is pretty incredible. We are so proud of her. And then I have one more award that I am just super excited about. And this is for Eric Hamilton. So this is from Mert Woodard. The Minnesota Educational Facilities Management Professionals, also known as MASMUS, gotta add one of those in there, is a professional organization committed to promoting excellence in the operation and care of educational facilities. It is a group of more than 900 individuals in the areas of facilities, grounds, health, and safety operations for the Minnesota K-12 and higher education organization. Is a member-oriented, problem-solving professional group committed to facilities management. Each year, the organization awards their highest honor, the Educational Facilities Management Professional of the Year Award, to a member who exhibits professionalism, leadership, and service in their career and life, and Director Eric Hamilton was awarded that this year. We are so proud of him. We know, and there's not a corner, nook, or cranny of this district that Eric's leadership has not impacted in really bringing our facilities up to that standard. We're defining excellence, and just incredibly proud of him and really excited about that.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing those with us, Dr. Stanley, though I'm not surprised, so.
Chair Ellenberg?
Yes.
May I say something really quick?
Absolutely.
Shout out. I would like to also say thank you to Dr. Stanley and her team for the community safety conversation that we were able to be a part of. Hats off to, all of the principals were there. All of your cabinet was there. Daphne Edwards, Jody Remsing, you, Natasha Montes-Daly did a phenomenal job talking about topics that are top of mind for families and parents. And I think all of you over there, and you, Dr. Stanley, for your leadership. It was well attended, and if people are interested in watching it, they can always catch a recording of it. But I thank you for your leadership in that, and job well done.
Thanks so much for that. They did an amazing job, and there's still time to participate in the thought exchange. So if you watch the actual community conversations, you can come back, give some feedback. We are watching that data in the thought exchange, and plan to use that information as we continue to develop our plan.
Thank you both. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes and the meeting is adjourned.